And again, Mr. Lutnick, thank you for your symbol of resiliency. It really is quite remarkable. Thank you for sharing even those most personal moments, because I'm sure it is hard to do no matter how many times you've done it. So thank you. I want to go as fast as I can. So if you can help me by being short answers, that would be great. I could cover more territory. Do you believe that the investments that we've made in the CHIPS and Science Act should be preserved?
I think they're an excellent down payment. As a structure, I think we need to get it right. I think we need to review them and get it right. But as the way the Congress has said it, it's an excellent down payment in our ability to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to America.
Okay, that's good to hear, because the president has said a little differently on that point, so good to hear. And then on NOAA, do you believe in keeping NOAA together and its responsibilities together?
Yes.
Okay, we're hearing that maybe they're going to try to separate some of it out and put it in Interior. You would fight that?
I want to do it right, and right now Commerce is doing it right. We understand how to do it, and I expect to continue to understand how to do it. So I have no interest in separating it. That is not my on my agenda.
Good to hear. I believe we need a NOAA Organic Act. Believe it or not, it's 60% of your budget, and there is no underlying policy in the law about NOAA. So I think the way that my colleagues and I get good fisheries management is to put that into the law and say it's demanded, not what the whim of every scientist that comes along with the new administration. But we'll talk about that later. Okay, let's turn to the rulemaking that we're talking about. I see you as a big rulemaker in a critical area, AI and exports, and the challenges that we face as a nation. So I'm trying to get to who you are deep down about this, right? How are you going to go about this really challenging task? Because I have some ideas about what I think make good principles here and why it's so important, because if you want to move fast, you have to be collaborative. I know other people think you can just my way or the highway, but usually that doesn't work. And so the ramifications, the best thing that we can do is work together collaboratively like we did on CHIPS and Science. Okay, so did you advise the president or anyone in his administration on his meme coins?
I did not.
Okay. Can you help me on this Treasury issue, this little fight between Cantor Fitzgerald and CME, the settling of treasuries at the London Exchange? I don't understand this as it relates to a hierarchy of putting the United States treasuries in some drastic situation, which we did see before, right? In our debt. And the debt ceiling is this debate we're having, like, are we going to pass a debt ceiling or not? So why do you believe that settling in a London exchange would be good for U.S. treasuries?
Oh, it was just the people speaking about it didn't understand it. All U.S. treasuries are held by banks of the Federal Reserve in the United States of America. They can't leave. So whether software is written, wherever it's written, the treasuries themselves, they always stay in America. The settling of treasury futures, of course, is in America. The partner Cantor Fitzgerald chose was the London Stock Exchange, which of course has been registered with the CME properly since the year 2000. So it was just a lack of understanding, good for the press, bad for knowledge. They just got it wrong.
I personally don't think this is, look, somebody tried to make my state the deep pockets on an Enron default, and I didn't appreciate it, and I passed a new law against the manipulation. So I know this very well. And in fact, the Treasury Secretary just got asked by my colleague, Senator Cornyn, in a hearing last week what he thought about this. And he was like, no, it shouldn't be ever. U.S. treasuries in a debt hierarchy of a failure should never have London making decisions before we make decisions. And so I'll ask you more for the record about that, but I think Mr. Bessent got it right, and I hope that we can get a better answer from you. On the one-to-one issue, I get that Tether had a problem. They basically weren't. As a stablecoin exchange, you came in, the CFTC fined them, and then you came into the picture. And so my question is, are you prepared? Do you think the market needs to comply with audits about whether one-to-one ratios really exist on stable coins?
I believe stable coins, U.S. dollar stable coins, should be audited, should be completely backed by U.S. treasuries, 100%.
But how do we prove that if necessary is my question.
Well, an audit, U.S. audit, and one-to-one backed by U.S. treasuries. And lastly, you can't change the rules, meaning if someone has bought the stablecoin, you can't change the price, right? If someone's made a deposit with you, you can't say on withdrawal you're going to change the price.
So you really believe in a robust audit process and more opening than it exists today?
For sure.
Thank you. Okay, did you ever own Tether?
A Tether? No.
Any Tether? Any backdoor? Did you own Tether?
Cantor Fitzgerald, is that the correct? Me? No. Cantor Fitzgerald has no equity in Tether.
I'm not trying to be clever here. I'm trying to get, did you or Cantor Fitzgerald own Tether? Other than the one-to-one backing?
So, sorry, I'm trying to answer.
Did you as an investor ever invest or own Tether, or did anybody at Cantor Fitzgerald, other than the one-to-one backing, own Tether?
Cantor Fitzgerald owns a convertible bond with Tether. So it has a bond with Tether.
Okay. So now this, back again to this big task on export controls and thwarting China and dealing with this AI problem and all of the various interests. I mean, I do have some, concerns too. I'm a big crypto person in general, as I said, CFTC oversight. But this issue about Tether and the amount of illicit market funding of Tether, the analysts who do this work now, I'm for a more robust system, but the analysts who do it now think that as much as $19 billion on Tether could be illicit activity by the North Koreans, the Russians, the Chinese. And so what do we do about that? What is your solution?
So the number one instrument of the world of criminals is the US dollar. The number two is the euro. So these are just the things that people use. So Tether is the largest stablecoin. So criminals use it more than Circle, which is the second largest, as a ratio of the same. It's like blaming Apple because criminals use Apple phones. It's just a product. We don't pick on the US Treasury because criminals use dollars. So I think it's just a product. They are, and I've asked them to, and they are signed up with all U.S. federal law enforcement. They follow all federal law enforcement instantly.
So that's like saying that if you get a request from the FBI or DOJ, you're going to comply with maybe that wallet is involved in illicit activity. I'm asking you a different question. When you have know your customers and anti-money laundering requirements, why aren't we taking more seriously a potential $19 billion illicit market that's going against the United States? So obviously we have other ways to track dollars, and we use those, and that is how we're successful. We've passed a couple of things recently on fentanyl that have really helped us track and basically crack down on this. But on Tether, it's a big illicit market. It's potentially 19 billion. So I'm wanting to know from you, because again, it's back to this whole crypto oversight, export controls. What are you going to do? What do you recommend we do to try to get a handle on that?
So in my due diligence and Cantor Fitzgerald's due diligence, Tether did no business with anyone who wasn't KYC appropriate. The fact that at some point their product was bought by someone and used it inappropriately, I think it's important for us.
Do secondary markets need rules here?
Oh, it's entirely secondary market, but I think what we can do.
Secondary market need rules, because my chairman's going to cut me off. I'm over my time, so thank you. But could you just answer that? You can answer it for the record, or you can answer it now.
I think AI tools used by the U.S. government running through the blockchain of stablecoin issuers will rid the world of criminals using blockchain for illicit activity. Our ability to oversee that blockchain and rip through it with AI tools will eliminate it.
I thank you for that answer, and we'll follow up. But we need an aggressive, the complexity here on conflict of interest, not you per se, but in general, is a very big challenge here. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Klobuchar.
This is why Senator Thune is the leader. We like that. Welcome. Thank you. We talked in my office about how I truly believe that if we're going to lead the global economy, and I know you share this belief, that we must make stuff, invent things, export to the world. And we made huge bipartisan progress on that front. Not everything has been done. We all know that. And we want to continue America's lead and competitive edge. One way we've done that, and Senator Cantwell asked you about this, is about groundbreaking investments in chips and semiconductors. Despite being the land of 10,000 lakes, I've actually never called about fish to the Commerce Department, but I have talked about these issues. And so I just want to follow up on her question, and just that, you know, Secretary Raimondo has done admirable work, I think, for both sides of the aisle on this, and if you are going to continue to operate the CHIPS program.
It is vital for America that we bring semiconductor manufacturing to the United States of America. We need domestic manufacturing. The CHIPS Act was an excellent down payment to begin that process. We need to study it, but we need to make sure that you get the benefit of the bargain and domestic manufacturing of semiconductors happens in America.
Got it. But are you going to keep operating this? Because as the Senator mentioned, there are funds that have to be distributed. There's work that has to be done coming out of that law.
Oh, I expect to do enormous work to make sure you get the benefit of the bargain. We get the money out appropriately, correctly, and we build in America. That is vital. We've done it bipartisan, and I'm going to help execute that.
Good. So you're concerned about the freeze that happened? The proposed freeze would have affected that program. It's now on hold, temporary hold because of a judge. But are you concerned about that?
Well, I get it. Lets me have the time to A, be confirmed, and B, dig in and study all of the documents that we've done so I can help get it out the door and get it done. We need manufacturing. I agree. We need manufacturing semiconductors in America, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen.
Great. Your life story is incredible. Your motivation of your employees after this incredible tragedy. You and I talked about the Commerce Department, and some of the people that went to work there went for other reasons than your employees. They're not making as much money. And I personally have worked with the people who do trade enforcement for steel dumping. Both Vice President Vance and I share mines, and we care about this a lot, iron ore mines. And it made a big difference over 2 presidents' administrations when this enforcement, President Obama, Trump, Biden actually, was continued. And I met with who will be your employees, if confirmed, about this, 100 of them, and heard about the work that they did. How are you going to motivate those employees? Because I think they're feeling very much under pressure, and some of them have expertise that if they leave, it's going to be really hard just to hire someone because they're not going to make as much money in the government as they might somewhere else.
I think the members of the Commerce Department are extraordinary. We have extraordinary scientists, extraordinary people with deep intellect and deep knowledge, and my job is going to be to leverage them, to make them feel heard, and we were going to be responsive, and we will create a great Department of Commerce that the people feel respected, heard, and their knowledge used to the betterment of America, which is why they're there, and they're going to know that I support them.
Thank you. We talked about tariffs briefly, targeted or across the board. I gave you my preference toward targeted tariffs for economy. Weigh in on that.
I prefer across the board. I think when you pick one product in Mexico, they'll pick one product. You know, we pick avocados, they pick white corn, we pick tomatoes, they pick yellow corn. All you're doing is picking on farmers, which is just not going to happen. My way of thinking, and I've discussed this with the president, is country by country, macro. Let America make it more fair. We are treated horribly by the global trading environment. They all have higher tariffs, non-tariff trade barriers, and subsidies. They treat us poorly. We need to be treated better. We need to be treated with respect, and we can use tariffs to create reciprocity, fairness, and respect.
I'm sure we'll be discussing this more. The last thing, just the broadband funding in the bipartisan infrastructure law. All of us on this committee has worked on things like improving mapping. Senator Wicker and I worked on that. You're welcome. And the work that must be done on getting broadband to some of the farthest corners of our country. We have an investment, once-in-a-generation investment out of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And again, the freeze would have affected this work, temporarily on hold. Talk about your support for broadband.
Well, they haven't you passed the bill and they haven't put out any of the money, or nobody's gotten broadband. So it's time for a new Commerce Secretary to get broadband out to people and give you the benefit of the bargain. I want to give the Congress the benefit of the bargain, which is you appropriated money for broadband. Let's get it in their hands and let's do it. The pause just gives me time to A, be confirmed, and B, to study it, get the team working on it, and then when that pause ends, to get it out the door and get it done.
Okay, I'm out of time. Thanks.
Thank you. Senator Wicker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Markey. No, I'm sorry, Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ranking Member. Thank you, Mr. Lutnick, for your willingness to serve. I'm going to ask first a sort of more general question, and then I want to dig into some details that you've heard a little bit about from my colleagues. But, you know, the Department of Commerce does significant work to ensure that U.S. companies are able to compete with China and drive. It also does a lot of work to drive innovation in America. And so I want to ask very broadly, how will you utilize the programs within the Commerce Department, including those authorized by the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, to promote American innovation?
So for the example, we want to bring semiconductors back to America. We want to look at the supply chain and bring that back to America. We want to create those great jobs in America so that way we can go back to innovating, which is where we began, right? Intel began the chips, right? And then the world sort of leveraged our chips. TSMC leveraged us and sort of took it from us. And who drove them? Apple. Who's Apple? It's America. So we want to bring that innovation back and make sure our great companies, and let's be clear, we have them all. There's no other country that has the incredible technology companies, pharma companies that we have. Let's bring those companies, manufacturing and innovation, and have them do that manufacturing in America with American workers. Let's drive that.
Thank you. One of the key parts of the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, as you've heard from me when we met privately as well as from others, is the Tech Hub program. I'll bet when you were having your one-on-one meetings with others on this committee, you heard about their tech hubs as you heard about ours. Wisconsin's BioHealth Tech Hub positions the state as a global leader in personalized medicine. It tailors healthcare treatment to a patient's unique history and genetic code. Last week, I spoke with many in the consortium that presented the Wisconsin application, and their number one question was, can we count on future funding? The first tranche of funding has indeed been disbursed, but there are millions more that have been committed to the Tech Hub over the next 5 years. This week, the administration announced a freeze on all federal financial assistance passed by Congress, including on a bipartisan basis, as most bills out of this committee and out of the Senate are. So, Mr. Lutnick, I'm looking for a yes or no. Should Wisconsin's Biotech Hub be concerned that they may not receive future tranches of funding that were pledged?
I think the best answer I can give you is I have to look at it and understand it better. I can't really give you an answer as I sit here right now because I don't know the details. So I try to answer everything as best I possibly can, but if I don't know the details, the only thing I can say is I don't know the details.
I think you'll hear from a lot on this panel, particularly that this is a key part of how we lead innovation in the United States. And support for our bipartisan work on this will be very important. You and I spoke also about the impact a trade war will have on Wisconsin's farmers and manufacturers. I know Senator Fisher just asked you about this also. But I want to say that their experience under the first Trump administration makes them really nervous this time around. According to the Department of Agriculture, America's farmers lost $27 billion in export sales in 2018 and 2019, in large part because of the China tariffs. A generous share of Wisconsin's milk production ends up in dairy products, exported to places outside of the U.S. And proposed tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, three of the main export destinations for U.S. dairy products, are likely to reduce dairy exports to a degree that would harm farm milk prices and processor profitability significantly. And I've been hearing from Wisconsin manufacturers who are very concerned about supply chains and their own facilities that are in other countries. So Wisconsinites are concerned that prices are going to go up. What would you say to Wisconsin farmers, Wisconsin manufacturers who are concerned about their exports, their supply chains, and retaliatory tariffs?
Our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen are the best in the world, and they are treated poorly. Canada, as we spoke about, treats our dairy farmers horribly. That's got to end. That's got to end. And if Canada is going to rely on America for its economic growth, how about you treat our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen with respect? And so I think the president and our Trump administration is going to improve the lives and is focused on improving the lives of our producers, our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen. These are vital. So I'm going to work hard to make sure, as an example, for your dairy farmers, they do much, much better in Canada than they've ever done before. And that is a key focus of this administration.
And can you commit to the American people that prices will not go up?
I can commit that the economy of the United States of America will be much, much better. A particular product's price may go up, but all of them, this is not inflationary. The two top countries with tariffs, India and China, have the most tariffs and no inflation. It is just a nonsense that tariffs cause inflation. It is nonsense.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lutnick, thank you for being here. A pleasure to meet your family. I appreciated the conversation that we had ahead of this hearing, and I look forward to your responses, how to carry out the department's mission to support America's innovation. And however, with the administration's unconstitutional move to freeze federal funding, including critical investments in American innovation, like the Tech Hubs program, part of that in Nevada, building out our rural broadband infrastructure, really important again in Nevada. I'm skeptical on the ability of this administration to deliver on that mission. And I also remain concerned that the policies outlined by this administration will raise prices on everyday goods and have the potential to make housing and energy more expensive. But with that, I'm going to turn to a few really critically important things to Nevada's economy that we touched on a bit. One, of course, everybody knows about, well, of course, Southern Nevada and Las Vegas are travel and tourism, key to Nevada's economy, top economic driver of every single state in this nation. And so, backbone of Nevada's economy. That's why several years ago, when I was chair of the subcommittee on tourism, trade, and export promotion, I worked across the aisle. We passed bipartisan legislation to create an assistant secretary of commerce for domestic travel and tourism. Unfortunately, we did not nominate anyone for the position, even after I secured the funding for it in last year's spending bill. So, again, as tourism top economic driver everywhere, really, really important. Urban and rural, every state in this nation has someplace great and wonderful to go see. And we as Americans love to do that as people around the world. Just quickly, yes or no, will you quickly work with me to fill this open position with a qualified nominee to be sure the department supports our travel and tourism economies across the United States?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to move on quickly to something else in Nevada, because Nevada, if you've been there, we got a lot of sun. We have a lot of sun.
I've been there.
And one of my top priorities, we have a lot of stars and a lot of sun, but some of the darkest skies, some of the biggest stars on the Strip, darkest skies in the center of Nevada, and a lot of sun up and down the state. But one of my top priorities has been to protect the solar industry and the really great paying jobs it creates in Nevada. In fact, we have the most solar jobs per capita, more than any other state in the nation. And so like you, I want to keep these good paying jobs here in America. I want to reduce our reliance on China, especially as it pertains to the solar energy industry. We can talk more about solar manufacturing, but with that in mind, will you work with me to ensure that any new tariffs by the administration do not hurt American solar jobs by making components of the solar supply chain prohibitively expensive, because I believe failure to do so will hurt our many small businesses in Nevada, small and large, not just in Nevada, but all across this country, as this is a booming industry.
I'll be glad to commit to study that.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to something I know everybody's been talking about, is the broadband BEAD funding. Earlier this month, NTIA approved Nevada's BEAD application. It unlocked $416 million. It's going to connect all Nevadans to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. We're in the top 10 most largest states. We are a deep frontier state. We're one of the most mountainous states in the lower 48. We have significant challenges. And even before the OMB guidance is issued earlier this week and halted federal funding, some of the administration have advocated for drastically altering this program, clawing back funds already allocated to the states. Because of our geography and geology, we are years into the process in Nevada, as well as a few other states are. We're on the edge of build-out. And before you answer these questions, may I remind you at the outset that laws are not simply suggestions from Congress. So can you commit that Nevada will not have to restart, but it's been a years-long process and will receive its full allocated amount that Congress has allocated to it under the BEAD program, given our plan has already been approved?
I can commit to you that if it has been rigorously done and deeply efficient, and it is the most efficient use to get broadband to your constituents, then it's easy for me to commit to it. But if there's been errors and mistakes, you wouldn't mind if we made it better. You wouldn't mind.
The project has already been approved. We are complying with all the requirements and the guidelines. We are about to build out laws and allocations, appropriations from Congress. They are not simply suggestions. It is the law. Now, just asking, like others, if you will allocate what has already been complied with and what is ready to be built.
I will read through that. I can commit, I will read through the document, understand it with precision, and make sure that the outcome that you appropriated for, which is broadband to your citizens, I am totally committed to that, but I want to make sure it's done efficiently and effectively.
That's not the question. The question was, will you comply with the appropriators of the United States Congress?
Again, I would say it just the same way again. Rigorous
That laws are
review.
suggestions, Mr. Lutnick?
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Markey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lutnick, welcome. On Monday night, President Trump's budget office issued a memo that directed agencies to cut off all federal spending, outside of payments to individuals. The Trump administration issued this order even though this spending was authorized and appropriated by Congress and intended to benefit the American people. A bargain was struck here with the Article 1 power of the purse. The benefit is supposed to flow to the American people. The freeze could affect semiconductor grants, broadband grants, fisheries disaster relief, habitat conservation, all programs in the Department of Commerce. Mr. Lutnick, do you believe that this action by President Trump was lawful?
I rely on the president. If his advisors say it was, then I will rely on him and his advisors.
Well, that's an unacceptable response because this action has caused mass confusion, disrupted critical payments systems, and violated directly federal spending statutes passed out of this committee and the Congress. So how can we be sure that if Congress passes an appropriations law for the Department of Commerce, that you are going to feel fully obligated to execute that law and spend the funding as it is written? Will you spend it as we wrote it?
It is my promise that I will try my best to give this committee and the Congress the benefit of the bargain that you have passed. If you want broadband, if you want chips in America, my job is to execute on that plan. This pause will allow my time to be confirmed and us to study and attack it rigorously. But I promise you, I will give you, as best as I can, the benefit of the bargain that you have appropriated for. That is my objective.
Right, and that's
Absolutely.
exactly right. We do it. We do the negotiation. And then Article 2 of the Constitution is the president. He's supposed to execute. You're supposed to execute. You work for him. So if President Trump directed you to unlawfully withhold federal spending that was authorized by Congress, would you comply with that order?
I guess I'd be spending a lot of time with lawyers, but I do not think that's the way it will work.
Well, it's already worked that way. You know, we know that the president has already unlawfully, in violation of the statute, fired inspectors general. That was not in compliance with the law. What happened 2 nights ago in the freezing of all federal funds, that's in violation of the law, the benefit of the bargain. So again, my question to you is, given the unprecedented times that we're in, and the Commerce Committee going back to being the first committee in Congress, we're wondering, obviously, whether or not you are going to ensure that the law that we pass, the funding that's going out to all of these companies, all of these individuals, there's a cloud over their head. Will you ensure that an unlawful act is not followed at the Department of Commerce?
Well, interestingly, the BEADS program hasn't connected anyone yet, and the CHIPS has not really distributed much money, so the timing is not really impacted. We will work hard, and I commit to you to work hard to deliver to this committee the benefit of the bargain. If you appropriate it, you should expect from me to deliver efficiently and effectively the outcomes that you anticipated or better. And that is my objective, and that is my promise to you.
And again, you understand that the president's already violated the 30-day notice on inspectors general that was supposed to be complied with. They're already in violation of the Article 1's power of the purse. And we believe, obviously, quite clearly, this is just going to be a pattern of conduct. And we need to know that the cabinet secretaries that we are voting on are going to comply with the law. That is the bargain that was struck with the American people to make sure they get the funding, they get the programs, which are going to protect their families as well. So I'm not hearing a clear answer on that.
I will comply with the law. That's a clear answer, for sure.
Right, but the law is not the president. The law is what we have passed, Mr. Lutnick. That's the law, okay? And what's happening right now is the president is seeking to arrogate all of that constitutional power into his hands, and that is not the law. That's an abuse of the law. That's a violation of constitutional separation of powers and an arrogation of power into one office. I understand the unitary government theory that is out there, but it is not constitutional. We do not have that as our system of government in our nation. So we're going to be very, very attentive to how, in fact, you will be conducting business at the Department of Commerce, because the people deserve the benefit of the bargain that was faithfully executed and constructed by this committee in terms of the benefits that flow to the American people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Lutnick, thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciated the conversation in our office as well. I'm going to start on a subject that it sounds like there's been a lot of conversation in this space. I apologize for not being here for your entire hearing. I was over in the finance.
The key is you're supposed to invite me to New Mexico, okay? This is the key.
I appreciate that. Now, Mr. Lutnick, yes or no, do you believe that reaching truly universal access to high-speed internet across the country is an important and possible goal to achieve?
Sounds like a great goal.
Yes or no, do you believe it's important that high-speed internet is available at every school in America?
Sounds very important to do.
Do you believe that it can be done?
I do. We're the greatest country on earth. How can we not be able to do it?
Will you commit to investing in infrastructure to get it done?
with all the tools I have available to me, I will do my best to try to get that done. That sounds like an excellent set of goals.
If you're asked to cut that program by the President of the United States,
I work for him.
is your response that if the President asks you to cut broadband infrastructure funding, that you will do that? Is that what I just heard?
Again, I work for the President of the United States, and I'm here to execute his policies. I think he agrees that broadband internet to America is important, efficiently and effectively delivered. I think he, in my conversations with him, he thinks that's important. Wasted money and abuse of our resources has got to end, but I think we can achieve your goals, and I think he agrees with me that he will allow me to achieve the goals that you've just suggested, which I agree with.
I do not disagree that there should be efficiency and that we should stand up to fraud. My question to you is, if President Trump asks you to cut infrastructure funding as passed by this Congress in a bipartisan way to build out internet to every school, as we both agreed was an important issue, will you oppose that?
I work for the President.
Is that an answer saying, yes, then you will cut it if asked by the President of the United States? It's a simple thing, sir. You've been in the boardroom a lot of times, Mr. Lutnick. I'm not going back and forth with you. We have 5 minutes here. I'll ask you in writing. We'll keep going. It's not about trying to evade this. It's just a simple question. If you work for the President and you're saying he gives you an order, you're going to do it. Is that the case if you're told to cut the infrastructure money as passed by this Congress when it comes to broadband? Yes or no?
I will get with the lawyers of commerce and I will do it correctly. But I believe my objective is to give you the benefit of the bargain. That is my objective. I have said that before. That means you have appropriated it, and my objective is to execute what has been appropriated. That is my objective. If the President has other objectives, I will sit down and talk with him about it. But my objectives, as I sit here today, are to execute and give you the benefit of the bargain of that which you have appropriated.
Mr. Lutnick, I'll slow down. If the President asks you to cut an infrastructure program, will you cut the program?
I work for him. I'll say it again and again and again. I work for the
Mr. Lutnick, are you not going to answer that question?
I'm trying to answer the question.
Yes or no?
Yes, I work for the President of the United States.
I appreciate you being cute with this, sir. It's not
I'm
cute.
not trying to be cute at all.
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond. It's not cute to the American people that don't have access to these programs when they're being promised that AI is going to get tutoring to every student, Mr. Lutnick. It's not going to happen if people don't have connectivity. Mr. Kennedy was in the other room saying that every person in America is going to get the access of some AI doctor to help cure the cancers that they've got or whatever other critical illness they have. It's not cute. This is serious business. We're talking about carrying these programs out for the country. I understand you're a very successful person. We're asking very simple questions. We had an incredible conversation in the office. Incredible conversation. A very respectful one. This is not that. I just don't understand.
Actually, I don't understand.
I'm not asking for a response, Mr. Lutnick. I am not.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one of the areas that we agree is that we should work on a bipartisan basis to get these things done. I have a reputation of being a bipartisan member in this office, of working with my colleagues. I've supported several of these nominees. I came into this hearing with an open mind. Maybe I'm the only Democrat that's going to say no right now. This is ridiculous. We have a responsibility to communicate to each other for the people that we work for. It's not just that you work for Donald Trump, sir. You work for the American people if you get this position. You told me that in my office. It's for the American people to bring the genius that you have brought to your success, to deliver the grand bargain, to get things done. That's the conversation we had. I'm beside myself with this little exchange. I truly am. I'm just surprised. Mr. Chairman, I've gone over my time. I yield back. Disappointing.
Thank you, Senator Lewis. Thank you. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lutnick, welcome. Yesterday, President Trump paused disbursement of federal grants and loans, including grants that have already been obligated. Some of my colleagues have touched on this already. These include grants from the Department of Commerce. For the second week in a row, President Trump's actions are sowing confusion, uncertainty, and anxiety. When Congress directs federal agencies how to spend taxpayer funds, especially once those funds have been obligated, that funding must be disbursed. That is federal law. This kind of chaos will make America less globally competitive, not more. Other nations are watching and figuring out how to give themselves an advantage while we are dealing with the chaos of poorly executed EOs. The Department of Commerce grants have real impact. For example, the Economic Development Administration recently awarded $51 million to the Illinois Fermentation and Agriculture Biomanufacturing IFAB Tech Hub. We've already discussed tech hubs and how important they are. They are important across the country. This is cutting-edge work that is going to keep America an innovator and global leader in agricultural business and grow good-paying jobs across the Midwest. Mr. Lutnick, if confirmed, will you commit to disbursing all obligated grant funding from the Department of Commerce on time and without delay?
If you add rigorously and making it as efficient as possible, I can say yes.
Okay, thank you. If President Trump directed you to do something illegal or unconstitutional, would you refuse to obey?
He won't.
That's not what I, would you obey, would you refuse an unconstitutional or illegal order from President Trump?
I will. The legal department of the Department of Commerce is excellent. I would go and get their advice and guidance, but this won't happen. It just won't happen.
So your answer is not going
That's
to
a
be?
hypothetical. That won't happen. So I don't.
He's given illegal orders before. He asked the Department of Defense to shoot protesters in the leg.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know that.
We can send you that information. All right. As we discussed when we met last month, good commercial policy is critical for our national security. Supporting small and medium-sized manufacturing, ensuring farmers have access to international markets, developing strong relationships with friendly partners, strengthening supply chains, and fortifying export controls to keep critical materials out of the hands of bad actors. This all helps keep our country safe and our economy strong. I especially enjoyed our conversation about the fact that our economy and that the Department of Commerce is also incredibly important to America's national security on a global scale. And I think we agreed on that, and I enjoyed our conversation on that. Agriculture and manufacturing are critical for Illinois and for the nation as a whole as part of that national strength. They not only generate good-paying jobs for hardworking Americans, but they also advance U.S. innovation in a highly competitive global economy. You've touched on that today, and I've enjoyed your remarks. If confirmed, how will you work to advance America's agricultural and manufacturing industries, both at home and abroad?
I think our farmers and our ranchers and our fishermen are treated with disrespect overseas. Europe, for example, comes up with all these sort of policies that our ranchers can't sell steak. If you saw a European steer and an American steer, it's laughable. The American steers are 3 times the size. The steaks are so much more beautiful, but they make up this nonsensical set of rules so that our ranchers can't sell there, our farmers can't sell there. It's nonsense. They don't like our fertilizer a little bit. We need to change those rules. We need to end the disrespect that our farmers, ranchers, and fishermen have to suffer with. And that's one of the things that I am just really excited about. I am going to help our farmers, ranchers, and fishermen be successful around the world. We are the best. Our farmers are the best. It is clear. And they need to be able to sell their wares around the world, and I need to help end the disrespect that they get elsewhere.
I agree with you that our farmers are a national treasure, and we should give them all the support that they need in order to be successful. When done well, joint ventures with partner nations can boost our economic growth, as well as enhance our national security. If confirmed, what will you do to foster an environment which can encourage joint ventures, especially with partner nations, especially those with whom we have national security agreements like Japan or Korea, that will enhance both our economy and our security?
Our great allies have taken advantage of our good nature, and they, like steel in Japan and appliances in Korea, I mean, they've just taken advantage of us. It's time for them to partner with us and bring that production back home. So I think we're going to work closely with our allies to increase their manufacturing productivity at home. And I think your way of thinking about it, saying let's work together to do that and bring it home, I think is really important for us and really important for our workforce.
I'm all for that. Thank you. I'm over his time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lutnick, it's great to see you and your family. And I just want to start, as I'm representing the state of New Jersey. I remember exactly where I was when I saw the towers come down, and as you were talking. I just spent some time on this hearing, actually just kind of counting through of the people we lost in New Jersey, how many were from Cantor Fitzgerald, and if I got my number right, it was over 230 New Jerseyans that worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, which is roughly about a third of the victims of New Jersey. So I just wanted to just express that with you, and people of New Jersey certainly remember that day and will never forget it, and the work that you did and your colleagues did to try to help the victim families. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You know, it's still very much in that sense of national security. It was actually on that day that I decided I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to national security issues. And some of the things we talked about today actually, you know, the goal is towards that direction. That's what brought the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act together, was this sense that we're entering a new era of national security concerns. And so I guess, you know, I heard what you said about, you know, chips and science being an excellent down payment, but I guess I'd like to just tease out and get a little bit more of a sense from you, just what you believe our role is in the U.S. government when it comes to building up industries, trying to be competitive. You know, are you someone that sees a role for government investment directly like we had in chips and science? Or are you somebody that still believes it needs to be more hands-off, more, you know, market-driven in that kind of capacity? Can you give me a little insights on how you approach this?
I think you gave the Department of Commerce the tools to bring domestic semiconductor manufacturing home. So I think it needed that jump start, and you, in a bipartisan way, created that jump start. And so I believe it was necessary and important. And you're going to see this Department of Commerce bring domestic manufacturing of semiconductors, and then we're going to drive after that the supply chain to the United States of America, drive it here. We are too reliant on Taiwan. We need to have, for national security and for our business, we need to have that production in America.
I agree with that. I mean, I certainly want to see that manufacturing back. And, you know, Senator Budd and others were talking about DeepSeek, other types of concerns that we face beyond just when it comes to semiconductor manufacturing, AI, and other types of technologies. So I guess what I'm trying to think through, being a member of this committee and elsewhere, is, you know, is there a 2.0? You know, is there a 2.0 that we can build upon with chips and science? You know, have that kind of coalition stay together. And maybe not necessarily specific on chips anymore, but on a different element of critical manufacturing or critical technology and innovation. Do you have would that be something you'd be supportive of? You know, that taking that kind of model of chips and science and applying it in a different sector?
I do. I think my job is to give you the benefit of the bargain. You pass chips and science. My job is to bring domestic production of semiconductors home to America. And then we are going to attack the supply chain. So we have the full supply chain so we can be independent from a national security perspective. So if I need help, I'll come and talk to you about that. But first, I need to execute what you have given me, which is chips and science. Let's go get you the benefit of the bargain. I'm not the kind of person to come and ask for more appropriations if we haven't delivered the first time.
Well, I hope this is something that we can work on together if you're confirmed, because I think it's important. On top of that, I mean, look, I will say, you know, you have a job not just selling things to the American people, but I hope as you engage with the president, I'm not positive where he stands on chips and science. I'll be honest with you. With some of what I hear, you know, he calls it a bad deal, called it a ridiculous program. I'm hoping that you and others can try to help engage there and see what it is we can do to try to move this in a different direction. Just one last thing before I conclude here. When you talked about tariffs, you talked about across the board, country by country, but I guess I want to ask you, especially when it comes to country by country, is there a prioritization list? You know, are you distinguishing between allies and adversaries? Because as I started this question about China being an overarching concern that all of us have, you know, why aren't we prioritizing predominantly, you know, on China, especially when we have to consider whether or not we're going to use multilateral tools when it comes to tariffs that will allow us to magnify our own effectiveness going up against such a large economy like China, which we're going to need our allies and our partners there. But are we burning those bridges if we're putting our tariffs targeting to our allies and our partners at this stage? So I just wanted your thoughts on that.
I think Chinese tariffs should be the highest. our adversaries should be the highest. But the fact that we Americans cannot sell an American car in Europe is just wrong, and it needs to be fixed. So while they're our ally, they are taking advantage of us, and they are disrespecting us, and I would like to see that end.
I have no problems with that sense of fairness, but I do ask, as we go through this, that we keep in mind just the tremendous threat that we're under right now in terms of our economic national security. And with that, I'll yield back to you.
Great, and I appreciate Senator Curtis referring to the last three as being the best, saving the best to the last. Although I bumped you out of that bottom three. I apologize for that. Mr. Lutnick, thank you for your time. Thanks for all that you've done. I think some of the stories of how you responded to not just the crisis of 9/11, but many crises in your life illuminates the kind of person you are, and I respect that. I've got a couple questions around Tether. I was here earlier when you talked about allowing, when we get AI in government, we can follow it pretty quickly. But we know that Russia's used it to buy drone parts and to avoid sanctions. That one of the main financiers for Iran had $100 million moving it around using Tether. It's used in a lot of scams with Americans. What is the best way, in your sense, I mean, if we're going to try and limit and be efficient with government regulation, how do we try to crack down on these illicit uses of something like Tether? I mean, what's your perspective? I'm not trying to say that you should be held accountable. I'm just trying to figure out, how would you suggest, whether it's Commerce or Congress, how do we approach that?
So we only know that illicit activity is done on the blockchain because it's done on the blockchain, meaning when these same illicit characters use dollars or euros, we don't know about it. Remember when we went into Iraq, we found, pallets of $100 bills. So the way to do it is to require that anyone who is a U.S.-backed stablecoin must onboard U.S. law enforcement and must allow U.S. law enforcement and our AI tools into their models so that we can go find and catch the illicit activity. Because remember, it's a central book. That means it can be found, it can be traced. Right. Our AI tools will rip illicit activity out of stablecoins within a year or two. Our technology on their blockchain will end it, and that's what we should require. Makes perfect sense.
And so you'll collaborate, work with us on time in terms of making that, creating that kind of legislation and rule and law.
Absolutely.
Great. I think one of the arguments also, we don't have to go into this, but is to open a bank account, people have to know who you are to sign up and receive and trade Tether. There's really no easy way to know who people are in that context at the beginning. Eventually,
Well, Tether only, the stablecoin issuers only issue to KYC approved people. But what happens is it's like dollars. I can withdraw it out of the bank, but when I buy something, it goes on and on and on and on. So it's really the secondary market that is, people are just using an electronic dollar in the same way they use a real dollar. And it's much easier to catch an electronic dollar than it ever would be to catch a physical dollar. Great. Much better.
Got it. I know I won't go through the tech hubs things because I know that Senator Curtis was adamant that they had perhaps the best tech hub in the Mountain West. I just want to point out that Elevate Quantum, which is includes several Rocky Mountain states, is a tech hub that we want to make sure that you come out. Don't just visit Utah. It's a lovely place. Skiing's not quite the same as Colorado's, but we're going to make sure we get you, when you're coming out west, we want you to make multiple stops. I spent a lot of work on critical minerals. Obviously, they are a fundamental building block for aerospace and clean energy, semiconductors, AI, go down the list. And whether you're talking about the extraction of minerals or the processing of those minerals, we're falling way behind. And the Department's International Trade Administration has a responsibility for kind of growing our exports, overseeing trade, and really, I think, helping to secure supply chains, essential supply chains for these critical minerals. How would you work to ensure that we have sufficient sourcing and processing capabilities in this country?
We've got to reduce the regulatory burdens on your miners so that they can mine those critical materials for America. We need to bring domestic mining back. We can't stop mining in America and buying it overseas. It's not healthy for us from a national security perspective, and it's not healthy for your domestic economy. So I think we are supposed to be mining in Colorado. It's an amazing place that's got incredible resources, and we need to bring those resources for the use of America and improve the economy of Colorado, but also improve the national security of America.
Great. If I could just have 20 seconds. In terms of that critical, and I agree with you completely, it's not, and it's also the environmental in other countries when they're extracting and processing these minerals, their environmental standards are a fraction of what we require in this country.
Exactly.
Are you in favor? Do you see a possibility for some sort of a tariff system that, like what Senator Curtis was referring to, in terms based on the environmental depredations that come from processing and extracting minerals in foreign countries that have no standards, and what that does to the atmosphere that we all utilize?
I think that's a key, should be a part of the study for sure, is that someone else is mining with coal and spewing it into the air, and we're worried about the fact that we would do it 100 times better for the atmosphere, but instead we don't do it. We buy it from them, they spew it in the air, and then they put it on a tanker and drive it to us and pollute all the way across. It seems, if you take it as a whole, illogical. We should be doing it in Colorado. We should be mining in Nevada. We should be mining, all right, we had a great lithium find in Arkansas. We have the Iron Range. America is amazing, but we are not using our assets to the best that we possibly can, and it is time that we do it.
Okay, so you would support that, some sort of a tariff to actually accelerate that process?
Sounds smart.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lutnick, welcome. Congratulations on your nomination. Certainly appreciated our kind of wide-ranging discussion we had in my office recently. You know, I know that tariffs are certainly a powerful and a positive tool that can be used, but they need to be used strategically. They need to be used thoughtfully. And that's why I called for 100% tariffs on Chinese vehicles last year. And while I'm going to continue to fight for aggressive trade policy when it comes to our relations with China. As a senator from Michigan, I'm particularly focused on manufacturing. We know how to make things in Michigan. And I don't think you can be a great country if you don't actually make things, and that's what we do in my state. And I want to work with the administration to make sure we're growing that sector as well as creating good-paying jobs that result from manufacturing. However, I am concerned that President Trump's plan to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico before the rest of the world, in fact, it could be in a matter of days, is what we are hearing, could hurt our manufacturers who do considerable trade back and forth, as we discussed in the office. You know, Michigan is the home of the top three border crossings in North America. We're two of them. And a lot of that are auto parts that go back and forth. It's a highly integrated industry, and our auto companies are very concerned about what those tariffs might mean to cost, particularly to the cost of vehicles. Already, something we discussed, I'm concerned about the high cost of vehicles. Many families can't afford them now. And if tariffs are put in place that deal with that seamless trade that goes on with Canada, that in the short run could definitely have an impact on prices and make cars even more unaffordable. I don't think that's something the American people want to see, and I'm afraid it would hurt consumers as well as also hurt those workers. So my question for you, sir, is talk me through how those tariffs would be implemented, what you're thinking will happen there, and how it's going to have an impact on prices, particularly in the short term. I know where you're going to go on the long term, but all this stuff takes time, and especially when it comes to manufacturing, it's not an industry that can turn on a dime. It's much more complicated, as I know you know.
So the big tariff view is going to be studied, and the president launched that in an executive order where he asked the Commerce Department and the USTR to study the tariff model long-term. The short-term issue is illegal migration and, worse even still, fentanyl coming into this country and killing over 100,000 Americans. There's no war we could have that would kill 100,000 Americans. The president is focused on ending fentanyl coming into the country. You know that the labs in Canada are run by Mexican cartels. So this tariff model is simply to shut their borders with respect America. If we are your biggest trading partner, show us the respect, shut your border, and end fentanyl coming into this country. So it is not a tariff per se. It is an action of domestic policy. Shut your border and stop allowing fentanyl into our country, killing our people. So this is a separate tariff to create action from Mexico and action from Canada. And as far as I know, they are acting swiftly. And if they execute it, there will be no tariff. And if they don't, then there will be. But it's an action-oriented model. That's not the ordinary tariff. The ordinary tariffs need to be studied and examined, and that will start, as the EO said, in April.
So that's a separate tariff?
Correct.
After that study, what would be the timeline of that?
I think that's sort of in April. Those studies will come out in the end of March and April, and then you'll hear about those at that time. So big macro issues with tariff are being studied, but the micro issue is Canada and Mexico and the precursors from China. They need to end, and we need to protect our Americans from fentanyl. And our trading partners in Canada and Mexico, they should end it and stop disrespecting us and allowing this come through our borders.
Well, I think we all agree on secure borders. I'm with you all the way. Being a northern border state, the ranking member on Homeland Security, we want to do that. My concern, though, is what's going to happen in the April timeframe as to what could that mean in terms of increased costs to Americans, if not properly implemented or properly thought through. What sort of assurances can you give us that we will not see that when that second set of tariffs get implemented, or if they get implemented, but it sounds as if that's your plan?
Well, we are going to study the actions and the economy of America and how it works. But if you think about it, we need to grow domestic manufacturing. As you said, Michigan is one of the great places where we build things. And the car manufacturing went to Canada, it went to Mexico. It is important that that come back to Michigan and come back to Ohio and come back to the great states of America that can build. And so I think a thoughtful tariff policy that drives domestic manufacturing, I think, is fundamental to the American workers, especially to the workers in Michigan.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Catwell. While we were sitting here, actually, it appears that Mr. Vaith, the unknown bureaucrat to me in the Office of Management and Budget, has withdrawn the memo, the two-page memo for the freeze. So that will hopefully open up ability for you, if you are confirmed, to distribute this funding. I do want to just follow up in a different way on the questions that Senator Lujan was asking. If a court finds that the president or someone does something illegal, will you respect that court's order?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. So when we were in office, I had sort of deferred to Senator Cantwell on some of the conflicts issues, and I appreciated some of them that she raised. But since that time, I'm particularly interested in Scandinavia because of my state. We have a lot of connections there, and going way back to Walter Mondale, and we've had ambassadors to Scandinavia, and I've actually personally been to Greenland. So maybe more than some of the other senators, I've been very much interested for a number of years in former and now current President Trump's focus on Greenland. And I know that Cantor Fitzgerald had an interest, a major interest. Would that be a fair way to say it in critical? No?
No, I mean,
I'm just reading this in the New York Times,
sorry.
so maybe they're wrong. I know you have divested, okay? I start with that. But so explain to me the Cantor Fitzgerald Greenland connection.
Well, I think Cantor Fitzgerald took a mining company public, and in lieu of its fees, it took some shares. But minor teeny from the view of Cantor Fitzgerald writ large would be the way to think about it. I think I was informed that, meanwhile, I didn't know we had it until yesterday, by the way, when, so I didn't know, but I was informed that it was just in lieu of fees, they took some shares.
And it's going to, and now you've divested yourself, but your family has an interest in it, which I assume is okay under the ethics laws, not in the assets. Like, what's happened? What's that transfer?
Well, the right answer is I plan to divest upon my confirmation, and I will have sold everything, and I will have no business assets and no business interest, and I will have no conflict as agreed with the Office of Government Ethics.
Okay, so, but one thing, so that's that scene. But then we have the fact that the president has been pressuring Denmark to sell Greenland to the U.S. That's correct, right?
I think he has had such conversations. I think that's right.
And the prime minister, I just see them as such a key ally, the Scandinavian countries, but for many reasons. But the prime minister said, no, Greenland's not for sale, right?
I didn't speak to the prime minister.
Okay, and have you discussed mining in Greenland with the president?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and would you see that the interests of, for whatever interest Cantor Fitzgerald has in mining or other companies have, that if America bought Greenland or somehow obtained Greenland, that would be more favorable to those terms of the mining?
I doubt it, but I wouldn't have the foggiest idea. It would be irrelevant. It has to be irrelevant.
Okay, well, I think it is relevant when
No,
you're
meaning,
president trying to expand into another country.
That's not what I said.
Of our allies and trying to pressure them. I think it is relevant to our commerce, to our national security and the like.
Well, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. I meant the economics of it are irrelevant to Cantor. I wasn't talking at all about this.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean that even the slightest.
Okay, I'll follow up on some of this in writing. The just last two questions, Senator Moran raised travel and tourism. He and I lead that caucus together. As Senator Blunt and I work to create this brand USA, which allows our American companies. It's paid for not by government money, it's paid for by private money, leveraged hotels and the like, leveraged with visa fees that foreign visitors pay when they come. And we've used that to promote our nation as a whole for tourism. We've seen some really positive results because before that maybe Vegas or New York City would do it, but not the rest of the country. And I just hope that you will work to strengthen programs like Brand USA and other tourism work that we do, as Jerry mentioned, Senator Moran mentioned, with the Olympics coming and the like.
I will.
Okay, thank you. Last thing, human trafficking. This is a big priority of mine and several people on this committee. Under the last administration, the Department of Commerce collaborated with other federal agencies, community partners, advocates, and individuals to raise awareness. If confirmed, what will you do to fight human trafficking in our supply chains and economy?
Everything I possibly can.
Okay, thank you. I said one last thing. National Weather Service, part of NOAA. Will you work to maintain the National Weather Service? Very key in my state.
I will. I think we can deliver the product more efficiently and less expensively, dramatically less expensively, but the outcome of delivering those services should not be changed.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that this hearing will be a restart of what had been a strong and professional relationship between this committee, this subcommittee, both sides, and the Department of Commerce. And I say that because I think that it was the experience of Senator Moran that during the Biden administration, whether they agreed or disagreed, the Department of Commerce was forthcoming in providing responses to questions. And that's also true when you go back to the first Trump administration, right? But it has been a very different and broken relationship since this administration took office, at least with respect to trying to get answers from this side of the aisle. I'm not fully aware of all of the chairman's inquiries. But as you know, we have witnessed during this period of time since the beginning of the Trump administration, an unprecedented and, in my view, illegal firing of thousands of federal employees, including many at the Department of Commerce, NOAA, and other places. We've also seen the withholding of funds that have been duly appropriated by this Congress and signed into law. As you know, Mr. Secretary, Article 2 of the Constitution requires the President to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Appropriations acts are the supreme law of the land. Executive orders are not. Doge diktats are not. To that end, here's just a partial list of the department's and the administration's failure to comply with the law or with reasonable requests from this committee. The administration is withholding $200 million provided to the Department of Commerce in the fiscal year 2025 appropriations law that the President signed in March. The department has attempted to illegally shut down the Minority Business Development Agency, despite the appropriation and the recent bipartisan 2021 authorization law, putting that into the permanent statute. The department has not provided its agency RIF and reorganization plan, despite a letter that both the chairman and I sent to you and the department requesting the specifics. The department has illegally fired nearly 1,000 employees, including over 500 from NOAA alone. The department has failed to provide a real spending plan outlining how you tend to execute the fiscal year 25 appropriations law. We have this 2-page document. The chairman referred to the fact that this is still missing other than this 2-pager. Just to give you a point of reference, this was an equivalent from last year with respect to the plan to spend the remaining funds for this fiscal year, which, as you know, ends on September 30th. The department has failed to respond to virtually all committee inquiries, at least on the Democratic side. Letters I've sent, I sent you 2 letters, Mr. Secretary, in addition to the joint letter I sent you with the chairman, and our staff has sent multiple inquiries, and I'll have some questions about the lack of responsiveness going forward. This is, in my view, unacceptable, and I think it should be unacceptable to people on both sides of the aisle. And it's in this context that we're now taking up the fiscal year 2026 appropriations bill, and I've discussed with the chairman of the subcommittee, and I know that Senator Murray has talked with Senator Collins. As an appropriations committee, we've got to figure out how, when we appropriate resources for certain purposes, that those are complied with. Let me just say that beyond the issue of the numbers and the budget, this does come down to people. One such person is Carrie. She's a mom and a homeowner who lives in Maryland. She's a federal employee who worked at the Department of Commerce. She was proud of her mission. She worked to implement the CHIPS and Science Act, promoting domestic semiconductor manufacturing, supporting good-paying jobs. She received the so-called fork email offering her money to quit her job. She said, "I don't need to take that because I think I'm contributing." Earlier this year, she was on medical leave to recover following a major spinal surgery. She then, a few days later, received the message to tell everybody what 5 things she'd done during the week. Her husband said, "Don't focus on that, focus on your recovery." Instead, she worked from bed. Days later, she was fired. Then a judge ordered her and other employees to be reinstated, only for her to be fired again. Making matters worse, not only was her health insurance canceled, but it was also retroactively backdated, meaning she had to pay for the surgery and medication out of pocket. One prescription alone cost her $2,500. She said, and I quote, "Right now I'm working off faith. We have kids, we have a mortgage, car payments. I don't know what we're going to do." Mr. Secretary, this is no way to treat patriotic federal employees who are doing the work for our country. And I look forward to today's hearing and the questions that will be posed from people on both sides of the aisle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. Mr. Secretary, as I welcomed you earlier, we now look forward to your testimony, and you may begin.
Sure.
You on the Senate floor yesterday and overlooked you today.
Easily overlooked.
Not intentionally. Senator Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We've all been talking about bottlenecks, in fact, in the department and elsewhere throughout the government. In fact, last month, Senator Cruz warned about the growing backlog of contracts awaiting approval at the Department of Congress. He warned that NOAA alone has 5,700 contracts set to expire this year. And it's been reported in the press that you are insisting on personally reviewing every Commerce contract over $100,000?
That is true.
Well, that seems to be something that is not particularly efficient, and that results in the 5,700 contracts just in NOAA. So, again, if you can't find reliable support to do those reviews, I think you're wasting your time, frankly.
So I am tasked with the responsibility of my department, and contracts over $100,000 should be reviewed by the Secretary. Now, I may have more energy and more time, and if you drive by the Department of Commerce late at night, you're going to see our lights on because I'm going through it. I do it with my team. I do it with the people who run the bureaus, and I teach them how to analyze contracts, not to push forward what was done before. And I'll give you one quick example. They come to me with planes, hurricane hunters, and they said there were $672 million. I said, wow, how many planes do we get? We get two planes? Wow. Can I see the plane, please? Just show me a picture of the plane we're going to. And they show me this picture of a plane. And you remember old planes, they had like mullions in the windscreen, and they show me that, 3 propellers on each side. And I said, my God, when was this plane new? They said, no, you're buying a new plane. I said, no, when was the first one?
Excuse me, Mr.
1955.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary.
These things have
You're
to stop.
talking about a $600 million acquisition. That's
Correct.
a lot more than a $100,000 contract to do something like cleaning in the buildings that you occupy.
Oh,
And
we cancel huge numbers of absurd contracts for software nobody uses. I said, how many people use this software? 0. These are waste, these are fraud, or these are abuse, and it's my job
How
to
many
teach my staff.
How many CEOs of companies, major companies in the United States, are reviewing contracts at the $100,000 level? And if they would, what would the board of directors say to them?
The first year you're there, if you don't do it, you should be fired. You should know everything that's going through. You should do it with your staff. You should teach your staff how to do it, and then you should delegate them to do it once you've taught them. You don't do it, you're abdicating your responsibility. That's how I view it. That's how I ran my business privately, and that's how I'm going to run the government. I'm responsible for our staff.
Let's go ahead and get those 5,700 contracts done.
There are not,
this
under
weekend?
any circumstances,
How
any
about this-
contracts
how
sitting
about
there.
this
There are
weekend?
none.
Can you get it done this weekend? Work overtime with the gang and get it done?
There are no contracts waiting for me, and if there were, I'll be there all night tonight making sure they get turned out with my team, teaching my team how to do it.
Right. NOAA budget cuts. I'm echoing what's been said before, but NOAA is a key aspect of our whole society. Farmers plant based on NOAA weather. We do research so that we understand changing oceans, et cetera. And this cut, as described by Craig McLean, who was served as NOAA's top scientist during the first Trump administration, has said in his quote, the proposal to slash NOAA funding by nearly 30% would take us back to the 1950s in terms of our scientific footing and the American people. And I'm echoing what's said by many other people. You're going to destroy NOAA. Well, that's consistent.
Under no circumstances. We have 2,100 meteorologists, and 120 retired this year, and we hired them back. I was able to have them exempted from the hiring freeze. We care about meteorologists. We care about hydrologists who do the rivers and the ponds. So we are fully staffed with forecasters and scientists. Under no circumstances am I going to let public safety or public forecasting be touched. But I tell you what we did cut. We did cut programs writing children's books for climate anxiety. Yes, that was in NOAA. And you agree with me, that's not part of our mission. Our mission is to forecast. Our mission is to protect. Our mission is to advise. Our mission is to research, not write children's books on climate anxiety.
How much money did you save there?
We saved tens of millions of dollars
On
of
books for
nonsense
children.
out of NOAA. Nonsense out of NOAA.
I want to also associate myself with those comments made by colleagues about the MEP program. We find it to be very effective. And the notion that, oh, we're not going to repeat what we did 10 years ago, et cetera, it's working. In the U.S., it's been estimated in FY24 that MEP secured $5 billion in new investments and created and retained 108,000 jobs. It's worth the investment. And this notion that, oh, we have new techniques, yes, we have AI, et cetera, but we have very common things that businessmen look for, like how do I establish my financial relationships with banks? How do I get this new equipment, which is not sophisticated AI, it's machine tools, and how do I do that? MEP does this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now recognize Senator Kennedy, the senator I was been so anxious to hear from. We'll see if I was right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. Mr. Secretary, I think I'm like most Americans.
In your exchange with Senator Kennedy, you were talking about Section 232, which is really supposed to be used to help national security, but it is under the jurisdiction of the Commerce Department, as you pointed out, with respect to tariffs. Well, last month I visited a New Hampshire company that makes ball bearings for the aerospace industry, and I agree we should be protecting the aerospace industry in this country. It's our biggest export in New Hampshire, aerospace parts. They were very concerned about the impact of the steel tariffs on their ability to get ball bearings. They said not only has their cost gone up, but the lead time to get the steel to make the bearings, they only have one domestic supplier, while they had suppliers in the Indo-Pacific and in Canada. Those have been eliminated under the tariffs. They said that their lead times have gone from 20 weeks to 2.5 years because of the tariffs. I think this creates a real challenge with respect to our national security. About a good percentage of the work they do is with the Department of Defense. It's in the defense industry. So before expanding these tariffs, did the Commerce Department work with the President to evaluate the impact to our national security supply chain? And have you coordinated with the Defense Department? This is an issue that I've also raised in the Armed Services Committee with the Department of Defense, because they don't seem to be aware of what the impact is on the defense industry of these tariffs.
Of course.
You did consult with the Department of Defense? And,
of course.
And what was the determination about how you address those kinds of extended lead times for companies that are producing equipment that's critical to our national security?
It's really a cost issue, not an access issue.
Well, not according to this company in New Hampshire. It's an access issue for them.
Well, that would be illogical, since it's just a tariff which is monetary. It's not a sanction. It's just a monetary one. It would be
well,
more
it affects
expensive.
their ability to get the product, though, to get the steel that they need.
No,
yeah,
it changes
well,
the price point, meaning if you're trying to buy it cheaper, the idea for the administration
well, they
is,
don't think, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to tell you what this company in New Hampshire has told me, and that is that their lead times have gone from 20 weeks to 2.5 years. And at that rate, it's hard for me to understand how we can continue to support our defense industry when we don't have the ability to get the supply chain that they need to operate.
the big issue is you can't fight a war without steel and aluminum production in America. You have to be able to make it. If you don't have the ability to make your own steel and aluminum, you can't fight a war. And that is what the president's doing. He's trying to make sure that we make sufficient steel and aluminum to protect our defense industry.
Which I certainly
exactly
support.
What you're
I'm
saying.
sure all of us support.
Sounds like we exactly agree.
But I don't agree on the way it's being done, because we're not going to have the steel that we need immediately to provide the supplies that we need immediately. So we need to do a little better planning before we put in place those kinds of tariffs. But I want to go to another issue.
And I can explain offline how the steel works, but it goes to a spot price. It doesn't change supply, it just changes price. But we'll go over that offline.
Well, let me just say, the company that I've been talking to in New Hampshire understands how it works. And they have a problem. They don't need you to explain it to them. They know because they've been in business for years. But I want to go to the Manufacturing Extension Partnership because you suggested that this is something that has not kept up with the technology. In New Hampshire, they're doing additive manufacturing, they're doing AI, they are providing additional technology to help those companies. And so I just want to register my support with what the chair, the ranking member, and others have said about the importance of this program. For every dollar invested in 2023, it returned to $24.60 in new sales growth and $27.50 in new client investment. This is a program that makes a difference for companies in New Hampshire. And at a time when we've seen the third straight month of manufacturing decline in the U.S., it seems to me that we ought to be looking at how we can continue to support those industries and support a program that's been working. So I hope you'll take another look at that, and given the bipartisan support for it, that you'll decide that this is something that it's worth keeping because it's helping American companies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You do know that my Office of the Inspector General cited the MEP as one of the most participating in waste, fraud, and abuse because the leaders of these things were just charging huge salaries for themselves. And one of these offices had like a 90% compensation ratio and others had 60. So the concept is right, but I want you to let our department fix the waste, fraud, and abuse, and let's get back to its core elements, which I think are fine. So we're not arguing about the core elements, but you need to do it correctly.
Well, if I could just respond, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that there may be issues and that we should address those, and it would be helpful to have some transparency around that. I can tell you that in New Hampshire, the head of the MEP program is not making an inordinate salary because we watch that carefully in New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Nice to see you. I appreciate the review that you're doing.
Senator Merkley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I believe the chairman has already raised the issue of the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Last week, I met with about 20 small manufacturers in Oregon who had benefited from this, and they were telling me their stories of how much more they'd been able to increase their efficiency due to the expertise brought to bear through MEP. There are 13 MEP centers signed up to recompete their 10-year cooperative agreements. I don't think that process has been initiated yet. Are you planning to initiate that process soon?
Well, I have to sort of sort it out with, I have the Office of the Inspector General has been really, had a very, very negative report. So we need to clean it up and we need to modernize it. So that's what we're working on. And then we're going to go forward, try to figure out what to do next.
Can you meet with those of us bipartisan fashion that have seen the powerful impacts on supporting American manufacturing by small businesses through MEP to maybe go over the Inspector General's comments and think about how if we need to reform the system, we can reform it, but then we can get this renewal, this contract.
Well, that sounds
renewed?
like a great idea. I'd be glad to do that.
That'd be
sounds
terrific.
great.
Thank you. I wanted to turn to the CHIPS world. To implement the CHIPS Act, Commerce signed contracts with American chip makers, but you have noted publicly that you are not planning right now to distribute the CHIPS award dollars even to folks who have satisfied the contract conditions. So just to be clear, yes or no, are you currently withholding the funding to chip makers who already had these contracts?
I think the benefit of the bargain, there are numerous contracts that can be made better. For example, the TSMC contract had a $6 billion award for $65 billion of building, and then we were able to modify the award for the same $6 billion of funding, but $165 billion of building. I think commitments of 4% or less are more appropriate than a 10% funding. Just seemed overly generous, and we've been able to renegotiate them. So if the question is, are we renegotiating? Absolutely, for the benefit of the American taxpayer, for sure.
Well, I'll just note that I'm concerned. I'm concerned because the whole goal was to reinvigorate American chip manufacturing. And to some degree, you may be able to strike a better bargain, but at some point it doesn't become a better bargain, and we reduce the acceleration of our re-energizing the chip industry here.
I can't be more confident than if you spend time with us, you will see that all the deals are getting better, and the only deals that are not getting done are deals that should have never been done in the first place. But all the deals are getting better. Micron offered to go from $25 billion in commitments to $60 billion in commitments. I mean, the commitments of building in America are going better. We're just getting more value for the same dollars. So we are planning to distribute money only if we get much more building in America, which we both agree is totally in the interest of America.
Well, I hear your point. I will say that when companies find, when they put a lot of work into striking a deal, that contract then is up for renegotiation down the line, that also kind of discourages folks from being able to rely on the contracts that they've struck. So I'm just registering concern about that, and hope the rest of the deals that were struck, if they can be renegotiated to the favor, I hope they can be done and we can proceed, because I don't want to slow down the work that we invested in a bipartisan fashion to reinvigorate chip making here in the United States.
Sure.
Thank you. I wanted to turn to the tech hubs, and the department has canceled a number of, well, I think quite a few of the tech hubs awards, and maybe it's a similar situation. I think you're planning to recompete them, correct?
Correct.
And in doing so, are you committed to a full and fair process with no discrimination against those who won in the first round?
Of course.
Absolutely, great. I appreciate that. I'll tell you, the microfluidics hub in Oregon, the challenge of cooling chips is such a key part of advanced chip making, as many more layers are added to try to reach the maximum amount. And that's such an important technology for the future. And so I can tell you the community in Oregon was very excited about the investments they've already put into this strategy. And I think it's I know that they were very competitive the first round. I'm sure they'll be very competitive the second round, but I just want to put in a word of how important it is that technology continue to be pursued aggressively.
I look forward to reading it.
Thank you very much.
Senator Britt.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, it's wonderful.
But I will call them and I will have it to you.
Thank
no
you
problem.
so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Collins, thank you very much. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you. So, Mr. Secretary, I mentioned in my opening comments the RIF plans. On February 11th, President Trump signed an executive order requiring agency heads to plan, quote, large-scale reductions in force, known as RIFs, and agency reorganization plans. On March 27th, Senator Moran and I sent you a letter requesting that you send us the plans the department submitted to the White House. It's now June 4th. We've not received a response. We're in the middle of a budget hearing. First of all, you would agree, would you not, that your reorganization plans are relevant to the committee's consideration of the budget?
I think our proposal for the budget is clear, so I think it takes those things into account.
Mr. Secretary, let me ask you this. Are you going to provide us with the reorganization plan, and when?
I will certainly get together with the department, and we will consider what information we can give you that makes sense. But I'm happy to work with you offline if you'd like.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, you're aware of the fact that a federal district court ruled that the RIF plans proposed by the Trump administration could not go forward because the judge stated that, quote, agencies may not conduct large-scale reorganizations and reductions in force in blatant disregard of Congress's mandates and a president may not initiate large-scale executive branch reorganization without partnering with Congress. That decision was upheld by an appellate court just a few days ago. I'm not asking you to opine on that legal decision. I'm simply asking you to provide the committee with the reorganization plan, and your response is maybe yes, maybe no. Am I getting that right? I mean, are you going to provide the plan to the this committee as we review the budget for the upcoming year?
Well, we at the department are going to follow the law. That, of course, is what we're going to do.
Okay. Well, the law actually does require that you submit these major changes to the Senate. Let me ask you this. I mentioned in my opening statement the fact that I'd sent a number of letters to you. Our staff has actually sent inquiries to your team. I have a lot of questions today, but they'll be a lot longer unless I can get a commitment that you and your team will respond to the inquiries we've made. These are simple questions. They don't, and I'll set aside for now the RIF plan. And Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent to submit to the record the letters that I've sent to the Secretary and the staff inquiries that my team has made.
Without objection.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, will you agree, say, within a week to get responses to these inquiries?
I can easily agree that I will go through your letters, and to the extent I can answer them, I will happily answer you within a week.
Well, when you say,
I don't know what the letters
this is
say
an
as I
oversight
sit here right
question.
now. So.
Well, okay, Mr. Secretary, their question. I'll read through some of them later in the hearing. We can go through them one by one. They're pretty straightforward, simple questions about the implications of the department's actions on certain programs. Let me turn to the National Weather Service for a moment because, as you know, originally 600 staff were eliminated from the National Weather Service. Then all of a sudden, it seems the department realized that this was not really a good idea, as many weather stations around the country, and the chairman referenced some of them, said they couldn't be staffed full-time. We have a headline from just May 15th, Washington Post: NOAA scrambles to fill forecasting jobs as hurricane season looms. I know that we're scrambling to try and rehire about 100 or hire 126 people, but Mr. Secretary, it's my understanding that as of today, offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon are no longer operating 24 hours a day. Is that accurate?
The department employs 2,100 meteorologists and hundreds of other forecasters, okay? This is less than 5%. We are fully staffed. There are no openings on the National Hurricane Center, zero. It is fully staffed. We are fully ready for hurricane season, and our meteorologists
Mr. Secretary,
are fully staffed.
you did not answer
fully staffed.
You did not answer the direct question about whether those weather offices are open full time, and it's obvious that you all made a huge mistake. I mean, you've acknowledged it by having to rehire 126 people. But can you just comment on whether or not those offices I mentioned are operating 24
We have
hours a
not
day?
made a huge mistake. I did not say such a thing.
I didn't say you did. It's pretty obvious from the actions. I will. As I said, you fired
News
600.
report
You're
was
rehired.
inaccurate, obviously.
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 Well, we're happy to follow up, and you can provide the facts.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Secretary, in Kansas, we have lots of
Mr. Secretary.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Over the last few months, I am deeply concerned because we have seen mass firings at NOAA that are really seriously jeopardizing the weather forecasting that we all count on. Funds have been frozen, grants and contracts have been abruptly canceled, and agencies that were created by Congress in a bipartisan way have been shuttered unilaterally, really ignoring the law and sweeping thoughtful tariffs that are crunching small businesses and raising costs for our families. And we have seen President Trump illegally block some emergency funding House Republicans included in their year-long CR, which has cut off funding your department counts on for trade fairness, export controls, NOAA satellites, and more. So needless to say, I don't think any of this helps advance the department's mission to spur economic growth and strengthen America's competitiveness, and it does leave me very seriously concerned about whether the department is going to be able to carry out its job. Now, before I turn to my questions, I do want to quickly raise your decision to cancel $48 million in Tech Hub funding for the American Aerospace Materials Manufacturing Center in Eastern Washington and Idaho, alongside several other hubs. We've had a chance to talk about this yesterday, but I want you to know I have a lot more questions than I think you answered. This hub is really a partnership of industry, academia, military, governments at all levels. Canceling that funding and further delaying progress at the Tech Hub really damages our defense industrial base and limits our ability to compete with China, as I told you yesterday. So that is unacceptable, and I look forward to you resolving that as soon as possible.
Okay, we have not canceled anything. And just to let you know, I do have, since we discussed it yesterday, I do have the $220 million. We did draw it down before the date it was due, and we have the funding for the tech hubs. We are going to fund the tech hubs.
Okay,
I have the funding, the 220, right? And the additional 280 comes when there's a forward auction. But I have the money. We will fund them. I'm not canceling them. I just need to make sure they do the benefit of the bargain.
I appreciate that, and
they
as
do
I
it
said
correctly.
yesterday, we need an answer that everybody understands is critical. Now, I do want to ask you while you're here, one of the agencies that you oversee is NOAA. It is absolutely essential to supporting sustainable fisheries, protecting our natural resources, and making sure that we have accurate weather forecasts. Cutting away at NOAA, as you've been doing, and as your budget proposes to do further, is going to do serious harm. Among other cuts, your budget would completely eliminate the Pacific Coastal Salmon Recovery Fund. That would be catastrophic failure. It would abandon our communities, our tribes, our industries who rely on salmon. And across the Pacific Northwest, salmon are not just fish. They are a way of life, and they are foundational to our economy and our culture. So I would like you to explain quickly why you proposed that cut, and I want to ask you, did you consult with our tribes or fishing communities who count on it before making that decision?
The issues are that we do the same thing in multiple ways in NOAA. We have not cut any hydrologists, which are the people who study the water.
But you eliminated the Pacific Coastal Salmon Recovery Fund. That is what I'm precisely asking you about.
Well, I think
did you talk to our tribes or our fishermen before you did that?
Of course.
Well, I have spoken to the tribes. I've talked to the scientists. I've talked to the fishermen. No one in the Pacific Northwest supports those cuts. And I want everyone to know I will not vote for an appropriations committee or appropriations bill that eliminates that funding. Now, staying on NOAA, facilities like the Northwest Fisheries Science Center, which is in Seattle, are really in dire need of investment. For this reason, this CGS Appropriations Committee has long included language requiring the Secretary of Commerce to include the cost estimates for NOAA construction projects of more than $5 million in the congressional budget justification materials, as well as the 5-year cost estimates for those projects. Are you aware of that requirement?
My understanding is we filed our budget according to the CR with exact precision.
Well, have you submitted the department's FY26 congressional budget justification? It did not include the list of projects.
My
Which is
understanding is
required to do.
the CR had certain obligations for us, and we followed them with precision. That's
Well,
my understanding.
The fact is that you are required by law to submit the NOAA PAC construction list to Congress with the budget. That wasn't done. Can we get that list by Friday?
I'll happily take a look at it, and if it's required, of course, I will send it in.
Okay, it is required. Mr. Secretary, I wrote a law, it was called the Digital Equity Act, to help close the digital divide, and it passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. Now, the administration has arbitrarily canceled billions of dollars for the Digital Equity Act, claiming it's unconstitutional. This is a program that every state Democrat and Republican has applied for. Every single state in the country. It distributes laptops in Iowa. It helped people get back online after Hurricane Helene washed away computers and phones in western North Carolina. It's a program in rural Alabama where they taught seniors, including some who've never used a computer, how to use the internet. I wanted to ask you, has the Supreme Court declared this bipartisan law unconstitutional? Has any
No,
judge?
it'll go through the courts, and the courts will decide.
No one has declared this unconstitutional. No one. Your job, Mr. Secretary, is to carry out the law that Congress has passed. You don't get to keep laptops from our kids because the president doesn't care about rural communities, kids in rural communities. My advice to you here, it is a law. It is not unconstitutional. And I would urge you to get those digital equity dollars out the door and save everyone the legal fees because the law is very clear.
I hear you.
Okay. I just have a few seconds left, and before I finish, I do want to underscore my state, Washington State, is one of the most trade-dependent states in the nation. 40% of our jobs are connected to international trade, and President Trump and your department continue to pursue this chaotic tariff policy that business in my state stand to lose billions of dollars. I have heard from businesses across my state, from manufacturers, from small retailers. They are struggling to absorb the cost increases on everything from napkins to car parts. And this uncertainty has really left them scrambling, which has delayed investments and caused serious supply chain disruptions, especially at our ports. These actions, in addition, have really harmed our relationships with our key allies like Canada. Heard Senator Collins here earlier talking about Maine's being their neighbor. It is our neighbor in Washington State. They are one of our biggest trading partners. And let me be clear, this is causing chaos, disruption, anger, and we have got to get this resolved because farmers, or our people and our small businesses and our communities are really hurting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Secretary, I look forward to working with you. You are, I believe, the first Secretary of Commerce to be a patent holder. And I personally am excited to work with you on protecting American innovation and patents. I have 4 different areas I want to touch on: AI chips, patents, the PTO, and IPEC, Manufacturing USA, and the MEP. Let me briefly in one sentence say I agree with comments made by members of both parties that the Manufacturing Extension Partnership is worth improving and saving, and I look forward to working with you on it. I've seen it in the field. I've seen the impact it can have. It could be modernized and focused, absolutely. But in my state, they delivered cyber tools to small manufacturers, and they've delivered state-of-the-art support. 1 down. 2, AI chips. What's your sense of the importance of AI to the 21st century? It's my sense that it's going to redefine our economy, our security, and our place in the world. And what's your sense of where U.S. advanced AI chip manufacturing stands relative to the Chinese right now?
So I agree with you that AI and the AI industrial revolution is our revolution in our lifetime. It is the industrial revolution of our lifetime. America has invented all of the great chips.
And how many chips will we make versus the PRC this year?
Currently, we're making 200,000 wafers, right? And we have demand of 10 million. Now, the chips deal that I made with TSMC, the Department of Commerce made, increase that. We'll have 1.2 million chips, wafers. 1.2 million wafers. So we'll be at about 12% of our demand.
And how
it's
much
woefully
will the
inefficient.
How much will the PRC make this year of advanced chips?
They say they're making them, and they are not. Okay, they do not have. We have restricted the tools to make the highest quality chips.
And I think, look, the FT reports that they're making fewer than 400,000 chips.
Yeah, I
maybe
think probably
less than that.
closer to 200,000.
So let's say it's 200,000 of the most advanced chips being made in the PRC, millions in the United States. Let's just agree that this is bipartisan, sustained over 2 administrations, and critical to our future, because we want the most advanced frontier AI compute to be in the United States, the most advanced models to be in the United States, and this to drive this century for the United States. So
I agree.
My concern is that the diffusion approach of the previous administration, the AI diffusion rule, that mandated more than half of AI compute be located in America, has been set aside without, to my knowledge, a clear replacement. And I'm concerned about the deal with the UAE and what it means if we provide to the UAE a significant quantity of chips without a clear path for a greater amount of compute to be here in the United States. Could you just tell me how you see this new deal? I'm concerned that we are at risk of dependence on Middle East compute rather than U.S. compute, given some of our real challenges. And I don't agree with the argument that's been made by others, not by you, that if we don't provide these chips to the UAE, the Chinese will. How do you view that point?
So number one, I agree, and the administration agrees that compute, more than 50% of compute must be on our shores in America. So we completely agree. The deal with the UAE said if you buy a significant number of chips, you will invest in America and build data centers in America for an equal amount of chips. So that investment must be dual there and here. That's required. The AI diffusion rule was very confusing in that, for example, the Prime Minister of Poland hunted me down and said, what did I ever do to you that you have me as a tier 3? And, you know, I'm part of Europe. What are you doing? And it was illogical. It was hastily rushed through at the very end of the Biden administration. Our view is we are going to allow our allies to buy AI chips provided they're run by an approved American data center operator, and the cloud that touches that data center is an approved American operator. So we control it while it's over there.
Given the shortness of time, thank you. I look forward to working with you on this. I think it is absolutely critical. You spoke with another senator, Senator Shaheen, about the urgency of retaining steel and aluminum for our defense. AI compute is going to be absolutely central to our defense.
Absolutely.
You made a comment earlier. We want to make pharmaceuticals here in response to, I think it was Senator Kennedy. You're familiar with Manufacturing USA?
Yes.
One of the things I was pleased to see was that it retained level funding.
Yes.
There are institutes around the country. There happens to be one in Delaware. Are you familiar with it? It's the National Institute for Innovation in Manufacturing Biopharmaceuticals.
Yes, it is.
And it is 2-to-1 private sector match for government investment and is on the verge of demonstrating a new way of manufacturing at scale pharmaceuticals in the United States.
Right.
It is critical to our being competitive. I'd love to talk to you about that in more detail. My last point quickly, I agree that there are too many unexamined patent applications. PTO fee diversion in the past has robbed the Patent and Trademark Office of critically needed resources to hire more and better examiners, to reduce the backlog, and to improve that speed. I have a bipartisan bill with Senator Tillis that would permanently prevent fee diversion, which increases the backlog. Would you work with me to support that?
I'll be glad to work with you. I think the Patent Office is one of the least understood and most incredible value for the United States of America. I think we undercharge. The fact that we have our amazing judicial system, that you can have access to it for $2,000. $2,000. And the U.S. judicial system should just do whatever you want. Seems extraordinary. Now, we want the price to be low so that the inventor can come in. But over time, I think we should have more money, and I think that's something that we're going to talk about. So I want to make sure we capture the benefit as well as the cost that's coming from the Patent Office.
There is a long-standing but underutilized capacity, the Intellectual Property Enforcement Coordinator, that is meant to corral IP enforcement across the administration. I'd also like to talk to you about why I think that should be funded and why we need some function like that, no matter how configured.
I look forward to talking to you about
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
We have votes at 11:45, which is fast approaching. We'll have a second round of, as soon as Lindsay leaves, only the people in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, and I do hope we will vote soon if we don't see any progress toward peace on the Graham-Blumenthal legislation. So I want to follow up on Senator Kuhn's questions with respect to the deal with the UAE and AI.
Sure.
Because I know you share our concerns about diffusion of technology to China. In fact, you're doing a number of things in your department to try to crack down on exports of very sensitive items. I think we need to go into this very clear-eyed. I mean, the UAE has conducted recently the Falcon Shield exercises with China. They've hailed a, quote, golden era in UAE-China relations. I think it would be helpful, Mr. Secretary, if you could provide, if you haven't already, and I don't think you have, if the administration could transmit the text of the agreement with the UAE, including the side letters and security annexes to Congress before any licenses are issued. Can you commit to doing that?
I'll just follow whatever the rules of the State Department are. But I'd be happy to go over it with you privately. But if you want it to be public, I'll just let the State Department decide how they play those things. That's for them to decide, not me.
Yeah, I think it would hopefully allay some concerns, and I have some very big concerns about the agreement as I currently understand it. But I look forward to seeing it. I just want to point out that the Republican-led Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party said last year about a much smaller deal that was contemplated by the previous administration involving UAE, and I'm quoting from that Republican-led Select Committee, quote, an agreement of this significance must be properly vetted by both Congress and the executive branch. They also called on the National Intelligence Council to provide Congress with an official assessment of the risks posed by the deal between Microsoft and G42. And they went on to say only once the agreement has received this level of scrutiny should the U.S. government allow it to move forward. Do you think that was good advice from the Republican-led Select Committee, Mr.
I don't know what the topic they were addressing was, but
well,
this was done in the whole of the administration, talking through it, and it's not a legally binding commitment. It's a framework on which to pursue things.
I understand that. I think the concern is that we make sure that we lock down the terms, at least that we understand the terms, or Congress has some information about the terms as we go forward. That's not unreasonable, is it?
No, as I said, I'd be glad to go over it with you, but if it's that you want me to transmit it, I think the State Department would have to say that's okay, and that's just their prerogative.
Understood. Quick question on the Patent Office. And I agree with Senator Kuhn's comments and yours as well about the importance of the Patent Office. I've also been concerned about DOGE getting access to unpublished patent applications.
That's not happening.
No, not happening.
No, that's just no, and I gave a little laugh of no. You heard all that.
So you can provide 100% assurance that that's not happening. Okay.
100%. No.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
No problem.
I appreciate that because that would be obviously of great concern. So look, I look forward to the chance to get together. There are lots of statements you've made over time. I'm not going to take the time today to interrogate you about them all. Although I do want to ask you this one question. I assume after yesterday you're no longer advocating that people buy Tesla stock.
It was on Jesse Waters. He showed arsonists burning cars and attacking a company. Then he showed Tim Walz literally attacking Elon Musk's stock. Yeah. Not the man, not the product, literally his stock. And I just thought, a terrorist attack on a great American stock seemed to require a response from me. And that's why I
understand. Mr. Secretary, I think probably you would agree that Secretary of Commerce probably should not often be offering suggestions on stock purchases. But I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to go through some of these other statements today. I do want to end, and I'm going to pass it over to the chairman where I started. I do hope that at least from our experience so far in the first 4 months, when I say ours, I'm speaking at least for the Democrats on the committee, that we can hit the reset button with you, and the Department of Commerce. And I would welcome the chance to sit down with you and go over all of these issues, because we've got a budget to deal with. We hope that we can resolve it. I'm going to be working in good faith with the chairman. So can we get together and go over a number of these issues I've raised and some that I haven't?
Be my pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
And here today.
Nice to see you.
I know you've talked about this issue a fair amount today, but it's important to me, and I want to bring it up as well. The National Weather Service forecasting offices are absolutely critical to public safety, and I know my colleagues have raised this issue, but I think it's important for me to restate so you just know how important it is for all of us here. The employees in these offices issue weather and flood warnings, as you know, maintain critical observation equipment, protect life and property, and literally for decades, they've always been open 24/7, because weather happens at night too, not just during the day. It happens all the time. However, we have a self-inflicted staffing shortage on the part of your department that has left us with too few employees to ensure round-the-clock operation in a number of locations around the country already. And has also left other offices, such as the one up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula in Marquette, spread so thin that they're concerned that they will not be able to provide the 24/7 coverage. So this is a major concern for us, particularly in a very rural part of the state. And while I was happy to see Monday's announcement that the National Weather Service has been granted an exemption to President Trump's hiring freeze, you never should have allowed things to get to that point in my mind, but I'm happy that that's happening. Certainly it's people's lives we're taking. So I'm going to ask you just a yes or no question. So this will be really short, and then we can get on to another issue. Will you commit to me that the forecasting office in Marquette, Michigan will not cease its round-the-clock operation? Yes or no would be great.
You don't understand it yet because no one's explained it to you. These are hard drive computers, literally, that no one has seen in 25 years, with green screens in these offices. They should be on a cloud. Our 2,000 meteorologists should be able to watch them round the clock. The concept that we're talking about, a green screen and a hard drive.
So the answer is no, you're saying?
No, we were going to modernize it. We are going to staff those offices. I can commit that we're going to staff those offices, but I will commit to you that the next time you see me, the concept of having 3 people at some regional office will be laughable, because our 2,000 meteorologists and our hundreds of hydrologists will be able to stay and forecast and protect us in a modern way, instead of these green screens and hard drives, and it's hard-coded and it's absurd.
Okay, so a no answer, a no answer. One of Congress's biggest bipartisan achievements, I think, over the past few years was the passage of the BEAD program, which gives funds to individual states to connect every citizen to the fastest, the most reliable internet that's possible. Right now, your department is slowing down these broadband projects and has a 90-day freeze. States are ready to move forward. Michigan's ready to move forward. Broadband providers are standing by. And the summer construction season is already underway, and it's a short season in Michigan, particularly in the northern parts. Unfortunately, you've indicated your department is planning to release new rules that would force states to restart their bidding process and tell states that they can't choose which are the best performing broadband technologies for their individual community. You've said that you care about efficiency. I appreciate that. But let's be clear, forcing states to start a process over would waste millions of dollars, add months, potentially years of delays to shovel-ready broadband projects that are ready to go this summer, especially in states like Michigan with a short building season. Millions of Americans, including over 250,000 Michigan households, are on the brink of receiving low-cost, high-speed internet. And your department, I believe, shouldn't stand in the way of this. So again, another yes or no question. Do you agree that it would be a huge waste of money and a disservice to Americans who need reliable internet service to restart a bidding and proposal process?
No, the Biden administration had 30 months and they did nothing. We are going to say within the next 90 days, as long as you are technologically agnostic and you agree to provide the broadband at the cheapest price per user, then we will get it 90 days for application and out the door by the end of calendar year 2025. 30 months under Biden, no funding. 100% under Trump administration by the end of 2025. That's impressive, and you should at least agree if we get it all out by the end of 2025, that'd be super.
Well, we'd like to have a faster than a 90-day process. The states have been working on this for some time. The state of Michigan is there. It is technology neutral, so that is something that you've talked
Well,
about.
then it should be easy.
And it should be easy.
Right.
And
If
a
they're
90
technologically
90
neutral, it'll go like that.
Well, can I work with you to get that done for Michigan?
Sounds great. I'm happy to do that.
Great, thank you. That's super.
Mr. Briley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling us together, and thank you, Mr. Secretary. Also, as a fellow New Yorker, I congratulate you on your appointment. You mentioned earlier the mission of the U.S. Commerce Department. You said nothing will take away from our mission. How would you, in a sentence, describe the mission of the Commerce Department?
To protect, to defend, and to enhance business in the United States of America.
And the mission, according to the Commerce Department, is to create the conditions for economic growth and opportunities for all communities. Would you agree with that definition as well?
Sounds excellent.
Okay, great. And I apologize, 5 minutes is so little time. We could have a much longer conversation. I hope we will have the opportunity to do that. I want to also just reiterate what people have said. This is not your choice, but I would pass along to the president that doing budget hearings when we don't have a budget is really hard to do. It's hard to drill down on numbers we don't have, priorities that you have. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you defending the administration's approach, but it is really hard to do. So you don't need to respond to that. But I would love if you would provide, to whatever detail you can, the trillions of dollars of investment that have been made during the last couple of months and how we were able to achieve the commitments of those trillions. I will do note, because this subcommittee had a fair amount to do with the CHIPS and Science Act, that I suspect much of the chip investment being made, whether it's in Texas or whether it's in Arizona or made in upstate New York, in Syracuse, is partly by the bipartisan CHIPS and Science Act. I hope you'll continue to continue those efforts. I have to say that in talking to folks both in my region and upstate New York, but throughout the state and other folks in the business world, what I hear about most is the need for predictability. And I have to say that most of the commentary that I hear from CEOs is the lack of predictability caused largely by the tariff situation has made it nearly impossible, whether you're a business large or small, to make judgments about where you'll deploy capital and where you'll deploy workforce. As decisions are made to advance tariffs, sometimes reciprocal, sometimes and then retrench, and then put them back in place, retrench again, that what I'm hearing, and this is different clearly than what you're hearing, because I feel like we live in maybe an alternative reality, that many people are not making decisions at all on investment because they don't know whether the president intends to follow through. Even the most recent announcements that there's another 90-day pause, during that 90-day period, people are saying, I don't know what this means. Should I move ahead? Should I not move ahead? Are we going to pull back? Are we going to advance? What should I be telling them about predictability, which is so important? I mean, you're a CEO, former CEO. You know this in your business world. Predictability and what you can expect both from your government and from the markets is so critical in making decisions about investment policy.
We had a bad deal in America that produced a $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So fixing that will take some time. It will not take a lot of time, but it will take time. I view letting the greatest deal maker that the United States has, who's in the Oval Office, let him make the deals. He is making the deals. I'm working on them all the time. The deal for America will be opening access to markets that have been closed for hundreds of billions of dollars, and then charging and protecting industries which have been attacked by foreigners like steel and aluminum, where the foreign governments, they give, you imagine, a steel blast furnace. You think how that melts?
Yeah, but
they give free or very cheap energy, and they make it unfair. So we're just going to get to a better deal for America, and it won't take that long, but it's a better deal for America.
Well, I appreciate. I think Many people would not agree with your assessment that the occupant of the White House is the greatest deal maker ever. I'm certainly not the greatest deal maker ever. I've never gone bankrupt in businesses that I've been involved in. So I'm not sure I rely on that, but I also don't want to rely on a single individual. But to my point, the advancing of tariffs and then bringing them back and causing, but how that goes to the predictability issue. I don't know how people can rely on what the tariff situation is going to be, even when the courts in the United States have said emergency powers expressed by the president are well beyond what was envisioned by the Congress. So on predictability, I would just say, because I think we'll probably agree to disagree, I would just leave you with what I'm hearing from people is not making investments, not being willing to make decisions because they don't know what to rely on. And frankly, I don't want to get into name calling. I know what people have said about the president and the whole thing. That's not important to me. What's important to me is advancing American interests. And look, that's what we were trying to do in the past for all the criticisms of the previous administration. Both Congress and the administration were interested in investing in core industries that were so vital to our national and economic security. I'd love to talk to you further, whether in settings like this or offline, because I really do think we all want to advance American interests. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. Thank you, Ranking Member Meng. Thank you, Ranking Member DeLauro. And thank you to you, Secretary Lutnick. Thanks for being here today. I want to pick up on what Mr. Morelli was talking about, and I'll use the word stability. And I think you know this from your many years in business. And that's what I thought about as I was preparing for today, the importance of stability, or as he said, predictability. Stability is the foundation of economic growth. I think you've lived it. Businesses need clear and predictable rules to plan and to invest for the future. Given this administration's claim of being pro-business and pro-growth, I am so baffled by the discussions around trade deficits and the president's belief around trade deficits and the president's beliefs around tariffs and the chaotic tariff policy. They're on, they're off. Many of the tariffs are punishing, creating a level of instability and uncertainty in our economy that we haven't seen since COVID. I hear the same thing over and over from constituents, from small businesses, from bankers in my area. They can't figure out how to plan, how to lend. Businesses can't figure out how to expand, how to grow, whether to hire, whether to not hire. And I'd heard just literally this morning from a very large American retailer. First word out of the woman's mouth was uncertainty, and the last thing she said to me was uncertainty, all surrounding tariffs. The lack of predictability. I also serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee, was recently in UK and Denmark, met with the American Chamber in both countries. Confused, uncertain, they can't figure it out. What in God's name is going on? We cannot plan to grow businesses. We cannot plan to grow growth and jobs. So I am baffled, absolutely baffled, by this administration's talk around trade deficits and tariffs. I fear the administration lacks a basic understanding of what a trade deficit is. I think many economists take issue with equating a country's trade deficit with any one country and its economic well-being. Some economists actually view a trade deficit as a sign of a country's economic health because it means we're purchasing more. For me, I have a pretty large trade deficit with my local grocer or my hairdresser. It's a good thing. It means I have money enough to get my hair done once in a while and to keep food on the table. It tells nothing about my overall financial position. Do you know when this country actually had a trade surplus, Secretary?
The president likes to speak about before.
No, historically. When did we have a trade surplus? I'm not talking about the president. Historically.
I think early, about 100 years ago.
It was the Great Depression. It was a sign of what was going on. It was during the Great Depression. That's a direction none of us wants to go. Tariffs. It's 90 days. We're going to have 90 deals in 90 days. Then there's a 90-day pause. Many of these tariffs, as they say, punishing. Tariffs on things that make no sense whatsoever. where are we going to go with the remaining deals? I know of one deal that has been apparently resolved with the United Kingdom. We got 89 more deals to do in just a few more days. Where are we on those deals?
We are in the midst of negotiations with dozens and dozens of countries. We could sign deals, but they're only going to get better as we negotiate them.
That's just simply not
Trade-
true. Because as I told you, the American...
Actually, I promise you it's true because I'm doing it. So I
Thank you.
promise you it is true, and I'm here
Thank you.
testifying in front of you, and I promise you it's true.
And Mr. Trump promised to bring down the cost of goods day one. And what he has done through his trade deficit fixation and his tariff chaos has nakedly increased the cost of goods. The estimates are that for consumers in my area, suburban Philadelphia, $2,000 at least a year increases on goods. I'll give you an example of one. Bananas. What's the tariff on bananas? Americans, by the way, love bananas. We buy billions of them a year. I love bananas. What's the tariff on bananas?
The tariff on bananas would be representative of the countries that produce them.
And what's that tariff?
Generally 10%.
Correct, 10%. Walmart has already increased the cost of bananas by 8%.
But as countries do deals with us, that will go to zero. As countries do deals with
But the
us, that will
cost
go
is
to
on the
zero.
American consumer now and on the businesses with the confusion now. Mr. Secretary, I believe you know better. I believe you recognize that a trade deficit is not something to fear. I believe you know that predictability, stability is essential for businesses. I wish you would show that truth to this administration, and I yield back.
Time of the gentlelady has
Would
expired.
you mind, Mr. Chairman, if I make one quick comment to the end? Would that be okay?
I'm sorry?
Would you mind if I make one quick comment to the representative?
Please.
There's no uncertainty if you build in America and you produce your product in America, there will be no tariff.
We can't
So the
produce
concept
bananas in
of
America.
building in America and paying no tariff
We
is
cannot-
very, very clear.
We cannot
Fighting for
build
imports is
bananas in
not the same.
America.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. Mr. Laurel?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. There are a lot of appropriations, markups, and hearings today, so I apologize for being late. And with that, I would like to ask unanimous consent to put my opening remarks in the record. I can. Thank you. And good morning to you all. It's good afternoon now, Mr. Secretary. Let me just follow up on something that my colleague, Mr. Mervan, was asking about, and that was the International Trade Administration, which helps to increase our exports of American products and services, protects American producers against trade cheating by China and others. I think it's important to note to my colleague, Mr. Mervan, that there has been almost a 30% cut to the ITA, $183 million. That's for below what was proposed for 2025. So it was going to cost American jobs, decimates ITA's U.S. commercial service, operates out of U.S. export assistance centers and U.S. embassies abroad, works to maintain and increase the exports of U.S. products and services. So the agency, which is meant to protect, if you will, our exporters, et cetera, and is now being decimated. I think one has to look at what has been cut. There's a MEP program that I believe has been eliminated. One needs to go carefully through each of these areas and get a sense of, in fact, what is being cut back. And, you know, facts are funny. You got to deal with the details and with the facts. You just can't speak about it and make general statements. And when you cut back on agencies and the way that you have and slash and burn, if you will, then we're not going to get to where we want to go. I want to focus a second on two quick areas. One is transparency in government, because it's critical. Americans need to see where their tax dollars are going. And since 2022, we've had in place, I say that and maybe self-serving, I worked hard on this issue, and we got bipartisan, bicameral agreement to make sure that the executive branch, and I made sure that was in with a Democratic administration, they are legally required to publicly post budget documents. That is how and when, how and where taxpayers' dollars are being spent. They're called apportionments. Put that aside. It's about saying how the money is going to be spent, and that is online. Now, this information is legally required. It's binding on a federal agency. The Office of Management Budget uses the information to tell agencies how and when they can spend the funds that Congress has appropriated. Beginning in March, OMB stopped posting these documents. This is illegal, and it's a slap in the face to the principle of transparency, accountability in government spending, which this administration claims to champion. Mr. Secretary, I'm going to ask for your commitment to once again making the amount-specific budget documents, apportionments, how and where U.S. tax dollars are being spent by the Department of Commerce and its bureaus publicly accessible. Will you commit to doing that?
It's my understanding that my department is following the CR with precision as is required.
No, you are inaccurate, because I'll get to spend plans. We do not have details on the spend plans, which the CR requires, and it hasn't happened. We have a lack of specificity on this is it's more than 5 weeks after the legal due date. We do not have a detailed spend plan as required by the law. Let me go back. Will you commit to getting online how and where the American taxpayers' dollars with regard to the Department of Commerce are being spent, as is required by the law?
I will, of course, follow the law, but it is my understanding, as I've been advised, that we have filed precisely according to the CR's requirement.
I do not know who you got your advice from, but this is the Appropriations Committee. We're looking at every spend plan, and let me just tell you, the bare bones spend plan was 3 weeks late. Surely, in that time, you must have had time to put together a more detailed spend plan. This is false. The law sets out the timeline and the level of detail. This is what is happening is illegal and in contravention of what this committee does and it puts together. And if you can't make a commitment, I take that as no, you will not commit, so that the public has no idea of what any agency in this administration is, how they're spending the taxpayers' dollars and where those dollars are going. I yield back and wait for a second round. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence.
Mr. Ivey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to follow up, Mr. Secretary, with respect to the chair's questions about EDA. You mentioned 80 programs with respect to which sounded like this may be the same 80 programs you were talking about for MBDA.
Yeah, from the GAO, and I'll send you that report. You've asked for it. I will find it, and I will send it to you.
Okay. I appreciate that. Real quick point, the prices will come down point with respect to the impact on small businesses and retail and the like. I just want to say that, I've got a lot of small business. I'm sure there are plenty across the country who can't wait. They're really up against the wall right now. The wolf is at the door. Their businesses are at risk of being shut down. So the faster this resolves, the better. I know you mentioned July 9 with respect to the tariffs, and that can't come soon enough. And I hope that whatever happens on July 9, there is some effort to pay attention to what's happening to these businesses in the country. They're multinational, corporations, they'll survive, but smaller businesses that are really, struggling to make ends meet, they don't have that luxury. They don't have that kind of margin. Real quick on NIST, and you heard them, I think, from both sides of the aisle with respect to the need for a budget that gives more detail. And actually, I just saw you testified. I think you said you're reviewing all 5,700 contracts that, I don't think it was FEMA, but it was NOAA. and you said you're reviewing all of them. And so someone who's gonna...
All above $100,000.
Yeah, okay. Someone who pays that level of attention to detail when you were a CEO, I'm sure that you demanded something better than the skinny budget when you were making corporate decisions for your business. You had to. And I know that when you go through these contracts in the way that you are, that's the attention to detail that we want to actually provide in our roles here in Congress and in functioning and carrying out our aspect of the appropriations process. So please give us that level of information so we can do our job carefully and closely too. And then real quick point with respect to NIST, again, in the skinny budget, there's a $325 million reduction under that category. I don't really know where the money's coming from, but NIST is a critical agency, as you know, with respect to cyber and quantum and the like. You got a letter from, I guess, in concern about this, Software and Information Industry Association, CCIA, ITIF, Center for Data Innovation, a bunch of private industry leaders, TechNet, raising questions about where these cuts are going to come from and what's being done with them. The work done at NIST is not just a matter of maintaining technical excellence, it's a direct investment in ensuring that American industry continues to set the global benchmark for innovation. And we emphasize that NIST work represents a high-value investment that directly contributes to U.S. economic growth, competitiveness, and technological leadership. We caution that downsizing NIST or eliminating these initiatives will have ramifications for the ability of the American AI industry to continue to lead globally. So I share those concerns. I'd like to add to the record this article, Eric Geller, NIST loses key cyber experts and standards and research. For the record, NIST is playing a critical role in our competition with respect to AI for quantum across the board. I don't know what cuts you're talking about making with respect to them because of the level of or lack of detail with respect to the budget. But please be careful in the cuts that you make here. I don't know that any of them are justified necessarily. I can't really tell. But cutting NIST at this time, and that chart I tried to show you that you couldn't see, the quantum competition, we need all hands on deck. This is a critical time for the United States right now. Making cuts to those industries or to those aspects of the government, they're such key players with respect to the industries. This couldn't be a worse time to do it. So I appreciate your leadership on this and hope that you will continue to make sure that the United States can take a leadership role in these industries.
We are not cutting in quantum. We are not cutting in AI, but there are old programs that need to be re-examined, and that money can be used better. And the last thing I would say is we keep talking about small businesses. 90% of our businesses are American businesses, and we keep talking about 10% that import. If you build in America, you're being protected by the tariffs. It's good for small business in America that build in America. 90% of them build in America.
Not all businesses build in America, as you just heard from
90%.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Mrs. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks for hanging around for a second round. I wanted to first, Mr. Chairman, just offer for the record some articles and documents. The first is a Washington Post article of this week entitled, "We Are Witnessing the Suicide of a Superpower." The second is, as Ranking Member revealed, the report from Yale Budget Lab titled, "The State of U.S. Tariffs, June the 1st of this year." One of the highlights, American consumers face the highest average tariff rate they have endured since 1938, the Great Depression. The next one, U.S. Trade document, U.S. Trade Representative titled, "Reciprocal Tariffs Calculations and the Flawed Formula." I'm sure you know this formula very well, Mr. Secretary. It is incoherent and flawed. I enter that for the record. And a New York Times article, April 7th, the Trump White House cited my research to justify tariffs. It got it all wrong. And the final one, which was revealing of my use of the banana here, bananas to car seat. to car seats. Walmart warns of price rise due to tariffs. For the record. Without objection? Thanks so much. I want to ask you about, I was interested in what you said to Mr. Morelli in terms of the mission and some of the language you used, the mission of your department, to protect, defend, and enhance business in America. That was a good summary?
Sounds good.
I think that's what you said. I tried to write it down fast.
Still sounds good.
I just wonder, did you personally, or your department, whose mission that is, have any problem with the president's recent trips overseas or the development of his business and his family's business around Bitcoin, meme coin, fundraising, or investor raising dinners? Any worry with the Department of Commerce, with the president and his family growing their own business while on the job?
My trip to the Middle East was extraordinary in that we came home with $5.1 trillion of investment in America. It was amazing.
Mr. Lutnick, I'm asking you, did the question of conflict of interest come up for the leader of the free world?
No.
No? I think you ought to have a team of lawyers take a look at that. It is grotesque, the way this president is using his office to enrich himself, his businesses, and his families. That ought to be something you're interested in. I want to tell you something I agree with you on, and I agree with the president on, the closing of the de minimis loophole. You're absolutely right. It hurts retailers when stuff comes in here, package after package, order after order, under $800, no tax, no tariff, no review. It hurts retailers. But I know the other reason that I believe the president is interested in that is in tackling the precursors of fentanyl and making sure these packages don't come in unabsorbed, unknown, and then off to Mexico to only come back manufactured and to kill our children. So I want you to know, I want the president to know, that's a good thing. And I hope it brings great revenue to our treasury. It should. We have passed on that at the expense of our children and at the expense of retailers.
Thank you.
So please take that back. And finally, I guess I want to tell you, do you know when we met? I don't know if you remember. We met once in Davos. We had a very interesting conversation. And you told me some of your backstory. And this goes back to where I started with stability. I think it is very well known that when you began college, your father died. And what a trying time that must have been because your mother had predeceased. And you were at Haverford, very near my district. And Haverford College said, stay. You stay. Get your education. And you did. And they offered you that stability at a time when you must have needed it most. I had a similar experience. My father died when I was in my third semester of college, suddenly of a heart attack. Difficult. We were all wobbling for quite a while. But his company offered scholarships to kids who lost their parents. And I got a scholarship to go to law school, offering me stability that I had no idea I would ever lean upon. I take you back to that, because what have you done in the meantime? You rewarded Haverford. You're making sure that other kids get that stability. Please take that back into your work in the Department of Commerce. You know stability is what our consumers, our constituents, our businesses, our banks need. This is not stability. It is an incoherent tariff policy that is costing every single one of us.
Mr. Mervyn. Ms. Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me fix my microphone. All right, I don't need it. I want to piggyback off a little bit about Representative Dean's banana example and how it affects the cost of living for our constituents all across America. You know, I have heard from many Asian American business owners. They own restaurants, they own supermarkets, they own well-known supermarkets like 99 Ranch and H Mart. They are really concerned about the rising costs of goods, like anything from basmati rice to the burdock root to different sauces that are utilized by the Asian American community fastest growing community in this country. I know that you mentioned, due to the tariffs, the price will eventually come back down. But I just wanted to, make an observation that the cost of living for Americans, as we know, is already high. And it's hard for them to be able to afford these goods and these products that they are using today. And the restaurant owners, the supermarket owners, small business owners are really in a bind because they don't know if they have to raise their prices and pass on the higher cost to consumers or to eat the cost themselves. And coming out of a pandemic where they barely survived, they are now worried that because of these high costs that their businesses may not survive. So I just wanted to highlight this issue that's happening in my district and I'm sure in many other districts across the country about a lot of these products that are largely not produced here in the United States.
The inflation under the Biden administration was very, very difficult and created a very difficult time for Americans across the country.
Well, the prices have gone up recently, starting this year.
Fortunately, inflation, as the last numbers were very low, in the low twos, and back to toward the level that the Fed says is their long-term goal. So that's very promising. But I will tell you, in our trade deals, our expectation is for unavailable natural resources, a banana, right, other spices and the roots, the things you've suggested, your expectation should be there will not be a tariff. But when we give that to a country, right, like coffee, right, when we say to Ghana, okay, we will not charge you a tariff on coffee or cocoa, but you will open your market to allow our farmers to sell soybeans. Because you're blocking us on soybeans, why do you expect to sell us coffee and cocoa and not let us sell soybeans? It seems unfair. Let's make that fair. And that's an example of a trade deal. Granted, these are small countries, but that's the kind of model that when we're done, we will not have tariffs on unavailable natural resources, but we will have market access for our farmers and our ranchers. Our chicken and pork and beef are treated horribly around the world, horribly. That has to end. And if we use that by saying you can export coffee to us, but you need to treat us better for our agricultural products back to you, I think that is fair trade.
No, I appreciate that. Do you have a sense of a timeline? I appreciate that the cost will eventually come back down, but when my constituents, just average individual consumers or small business owners are asking me when the prices will come back down, prices that have gone up only in recent months after this new Trump administration, what can we tell our constituents?
The president has set out July 9th as the date by which he expects most transaction deals to have occurred. If they don't occur because of back and forth, the president can just set the agenda and say, here's your offer, and set that trading deal in place. And your expectation should be by July 9th.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I just, in my 30 seconds left, I want to align myself with the concerns made by the chair about EDA. This is a program that is very important. Programs from Tech Hubs, the Recompete program, the Good Jobs Challenge. So many programs are important to our rural areas, to job creation. We know that in your confirmation hearing, you pledged to maintain these programs, and we hope that that will continue. Thank you.
Mr. Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. I wanted to join quickly with the comments from the chair and the ranking member regarding NOAA. And I hear your point about fake news and numbers, but I'll say this. I mean, I have 2 NOAA installations in my district, and headquarters is, I don't know, just a couple miles across the line. And I heard a very different story than what you're saying about people being forced out of there. But I look forward to getting the answers that you provide here. Also saw your comments with respect to Senator Van Hollen yesterday. I look forward to to seeing your responses to his questions, too. Wanted to ask you about MBDA, which the ranking member raised as well. During your confirmation hearing on January 29th before the Senate Commerce Committee, Senator Blunt Rochester asked, yes or no, do you support dismantling the MBDA? And you said, I do not. Now, I got the skinny budget numbers here, and it's got EDA and MBDA combined with a cut for $624 million. And in the narrative connected with that, it says that MBDA, the agency, is fully eliminated. So I wanted to ask you what changed and what's the status of MBDA at this point?
MBDA is not being fully eliminated. That's inaccurate. We are reducing it to its statutory minimum size, as is appropriate. The problem I see with MBDA...
Could I ask you before you move on, what does that mean, statutory minimum size?
That means it is required by law to be a certain size, and we will have it be a certain size.
What size is that?
It was 65 people. I think that's less than 10 people.
Okay, and why are you doing
These are both small size. The problem is the GAO gives me a report that says there are 80 other programs and 80 institutions that are so much larger, 10 times larger, that achieve the same outcomes. And we are just too small and too inefficient to do it correctly. So I think we are better served having other programs.
I apologize
take care
because
of
I've
it.
got a couple other areas to hit. I'd love to see that GAO report. I want to know what those 80 other entities are because I'm not aware of them. Maybe SBA has an overlap with the MBDA mission, but the other, I don't know what those other ones could be. But I look forward to hearing back from you on that because I think it's an important agency. It's statutory, so it needs to be maintained certainly at some level. And there's a lot of benefit from it. I would also mention the Congressional Black Caucus sent you a letter on this issue and asked for a response by April 18th. I don't think we've received it yet, so I would ask that you provide that response as well. Let me move quickly to quantum technology. This is kind of a quicker point for me, but quantum computing, this chart shows basically funding by governments. China, as you can see, far outpaces the United States. We've got a couple of other...
I couldn't see it, but I was guessing the top bar.
Yeah.
I didn't need to see the words. I got the point.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, here's the question, because this is concerning, obviously, and you touched on this a bit in your opening testimony, although you only talked about the enforcement side of competition with China, and clearly they are stealing a lot of our data. But they're also committing a lot of engineers, scientists, and resources to outpacing us on the legitimate side of this too, from the competitive side. I don't see that being reflected in not just the Commerce Department, but the overall U.S. budget. IonQ is a company in my district. It's a spinoff from the University of Maryland's incubator. We have a lot of those across the country. Quick point, oh man, I'm out of time already. The cuts that are being made, and there's an article I'll submit for the record here. World scientists look elsewhere as U.S. labs stagger under Trump cuts. New York Times, cuts in research and scientists brain drain. As we push these people out, I mean, you can shake your head if you want, but I went to visit IonQ. And one of the things that came up was, I was like, how many of these people are from the United States? And he said, not many. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, in part because the pipeline isn't supplying these here in the United States, so we go overseas to get many of them. And one last quick point on this. A venture capital firm I had a chance to meet with said that they invest in, I think there are about 30 of these they invest in. They've started setting up shop in Canada because they can get their engineers and scientists from overseas quicker over there. They don't have to go through the immigration piece. So we're losing money on that front. So look forward to hearing from you on that. Mr. Chairman, I apologize for the overrun and I appreciate your generosity.
Mr. Klein?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad to hear the status update of the regional local weather offices. Your testimony and the numbers are really different from what's been reported in the press. We just want to make sure, whether it's New York, my home state, or states like Kentucky, which have gone through such horrible circumstances, and our condolences to your constituents and their families, Mr. Chair. We want to make sure that our local communities can be prepared. I know that you're saying it's inconsistent from the reporting. Would you or your team be able to provide statistics and just more accounting of what has happened, where there are retired or layoffs, just so we can all be on the same page if you do think it's inconsistent with the press reporting?
Sure. There were no layoffs. As I said, there were less than 5% retirements, and we have the authority to replace them. But that turnover is historically lower than it has normally been. As you can imagine, people are entitled to retire who've worked at the department. But I'd be glad to give you very specific details. Be my pleasure.
Okay, thank you so much. I wanted to switch gears and ask about the Census Bureau. In April, NPR reported that the hiring freeze and recent Census Bureau staff departures, including those of 5 division or office chiefs, are raising concerns about whether the Census Bureau can continue producing reliable statistics for this country. Acting Director Ron Jarman also recently noted that the Bureau lost more than 1,000 employees in recent months. We've heard warnings that the reports of Elon Musk and the Doge team accessing sensitive personal data of Americans at other federal agencies could also undermine public trust in the Census Bureau. Mr. Secretary, what are you doing to address these concerns?
Again, my capacity to communicate throughout this administration has made the Department of Commerce well situated. We are not losing staff in ways that we don't want to under any circumstances. We are able to fulfill all of our mission at the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau is one of the great statistical places in our government. Our capacity to analyze and statistically think things through. If you couple that in its full, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, right, where we live and we do GDP, that is a great center of statistical capacity. And I think, so we have sought to add to the Commerce Department the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that CPI, I mean, shouldn't we have all of the great statisticians in the government working together? Again, these are the same concepts, which is use technology, use automation. I mean, the idea that the Bureau of Labor Statistics has enumerators calling around and asking for data when technology makes that amazingly capable, and we could do so much better. So we are seeking to use technology, but I can promise you the census is both well-staffed and, more importantly, brilliantly covered by statisticians who are great at doing their job, and I am really excited for the structure of how the census will work going forward. But you won't hear anything about weakness in accuracy. I'm not saying the fake news doesn't like to just say these things, but it's just not true, and I'll happily send you those statistics as well, because you'll be very comfortable with the Department of Commerce.
Thank you. And just to follow up with that, recently you terminated the 3 advisory committees. There are also scheduled only 2 major field tests in 2026. Can you provide us an update on the field tests? When are they scheduled? And what are the changes to the questions about race and ethnicity? And also talk about the advisory committees.
The advisory committees were set up, again, many of these things were set up long ago, and they've sort of run their course. And we didn't really understand what type of advisory committee we need to understand how to do a census. It didn't seem logical. With respect to the questionnaire, we have not considered that as of yet. So we have not spent the time thinking about those topics. The decennial census is quite far away, and we have plenty of time to think about that going forward.
Thank you. I yield back.
Judge Carter?
I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Mr. Secretary. My district in Central Texas has become a leader in semiconductor production, thanks to strong partnerships between the state, the local political organizations, the industry, the universities, and the workforce training centers, including programs tailored for veterans and military families. How is the department supporting these types of locally driven efforts? What more can be done to accelerate the pipeline of skilled American workers entering the semiconductor industry?
Workforce training will be a centerpiece of the Trump administration, and I've been tasked to be part of the team to build that. So if the trillions of dollars that the Trump administration is bringing in to invest in America, to build and to operate those gigantic production facilities, to reshore manufacturing, we need to train great Americans to be, we say HVAC technicians. You realize these factories have these really high-tech closed-loop cooling systems. Amazing, but training our workforce to do this is really a key part of the administration. I think we'll train 5 million Americans for these great jobs that are coming, just like that semiconductor plant in Arizona. 3,000 jobs for each plant, and they're building 10 of them. So these are just great jobs coming, and Texas, I know, is going to have a great participation in that, and both you use the schools, and I think it will be an extraordinary outcome for America.
Well, Samsung's being a good neighbor in my district, and I'm real proud of what they're doing. As a member of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, I remain deeply concerned about the national security risks tied to our reliance on foreign-made semiconductor components. What step is the department taking to reduce our dependence on overseas manufacturing, particularly for chips that support critical defense systems?
Taiwan produces 90% of the world's wafers, which you then chip apart, and that becomes chips. So the United States has demand for 10 million sort of high-end wafers, and we, with the increase of $100 billion investment that the Trump administration was able to bring in from TSMC, we will get to about 12% production, woefully inefficient. And I think what you're going to see is the Trump administration is going to be very, very focused on bringing chip production to America and the full supply chain to America. That's going to bring in probably between $500 billion and $1 trillion investment. And you're going to see that across the United States of America. And the Trump administration is very, very focused on trying to get up to 5 million wafers during this administration, which will be a record-breaking speed. But I think it's very important for exactly the topic you raised.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm encouraged, we are encouraged by the launch of the United States Investment Accelerator and appreciate your continued focus on revitalizing American manufacturing. Can you share more about how the rollout of this new office will take shape, and are there any early projects we can expect, particularly those that support the development of critical defense-related semiconductor technology?
It has been too slow, the process to build a great factory and a great advanced manufacturing facility in America. Generally, it's taken 3+ years from start to finish. And so the idea of the investment accelerator is exactly that, to assign, if you're willing to invest more than $10 billion, assign your direct contact that will help you with permitting, regulation, and be a one government response to help you take that from 3 years. Let's try to get it to 18 months so we can double our building capacity, focused on semiconductors, of course, but across all industry. And that's how we've been able to recruit over just the department itself, over $5 trillion of investment commitment, and that we are taking care of how quickly they can build in America.
Fantastic. I yield back.
Thank you.
Mr. Mervin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, it's a pleasure. I represent Northwest Indiana, the top steel producing capital within the nation. With that, giving credit where credit's due, Section 232 helped our steel industry, our steel workers, and also our trades in the first administration. Now, as we go through this...
So they're happy, right? Your constituents are happy.
The market goes up and down, as you well know, in the steel industry. No, they were happy with Section 232. That's why I said I give credit where credit's due.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So my underlying question is, ultimately, we want to make sure we have a level playing field and capacity in foreign countries such as China. They subsidize their steel, they flood the market, then my steel workers and people within my community lose their jobs. I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about the 50% steel tariffs that are in place now, and I also want to talk about the concern that I have for downstream industries. Specifically, you had talked about in many different areas reshoring domestic manufacturing. I am on board and have advocated for reshoring domestic manufacturing. The time it takes to invest those trillions of dollars and build up for capacity to build, as you had mentioned, cars are being built in Mexico for America. How are we going to invest, or how are you, one, the impact of the 50% tariffs, if you could discuss that with me, and then how is it affecting downstream industries, and what is the plan to make sure that those individuals who work in those plants that are downstream of the steel industries are going to be protected?
So foreign countries subsidize the power, which is the biggest cost.
Energy.
And so China can produce steel at $450 a metric ton. And our price was generally just below $1,000. So they were basically put 40 blast furnace companies out of business. So they basically were crushing steel in America. And Donald Trump came in and said, look, it's a subsidy. So we put on 25%, and that moved the price up to about $900. And then it started to drift down because the Chinese are producing it at $450 because they don't pay for power.
Right.
And so the president said, I've got to protect domestic steel, because his view is you can't fight a war unless you can make steel. You can't fight a war unless you can make aluminum. And the steel workers and aluminum workers of America are happy because they're being protected. Their reasonable price point is where we are right now, which is just below $1,000 a metric ton. We are going to build tens of billions of dollars have been committed because of that to building plants, mills.
Can you give me examples of the promised investments?
Hyundai promised $7.5 billion.
Hyundai?
Hyundai, you know, the
Hyundai.
Korean.
Hyundai,
yeah.
sure.
$7.5 billion plant. There were a variety, I met with a variety of steel makers who offered us about $6 billion of 2 new plants. Nippon Steel, $14.1 billion of new investment.
That's a whole nother 5 minutes, but yes.
I believe you. But those are commitments that we have. And in auto, we have $250 billion of commitments because of the tariffs to build and reshore in South Carolina, in Ohio, in Michigan, in Tennessee. These are all coming in because of our tariffs.
Okay. So along with tariffs is the enforcement that you talked about. So one of the reasons why I wanted to be in this committee is to be able to make sure that the enforcement side of it, the ITA, has the resources necessary. Are you here making a commitment that there won't be cuts to the ITA that will reduce the resources that they need to make sure that the enforcement of the products that are coming into our country, that we could track that?
Importing, exporting, are key roles that we will never cut, we will only enhance. There are a whole variety of areas within these bureaus that you would agree with me are just not necessary. So we are re-examining what is important and putting the resources on that which is most important.
Okay. I will wait for the second round to talk about the Nippon deal. And just one very quick question. Were you in the room in the CFIUS committee for the Nippon deal?
Yes.
What was your recommendation?
My recommendation was it could be approved with mitigation, change.
Okay. On my second round, and I would like to continue that conversation. Thank you. With that, I yield back.
Mr. Laurel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. I gather, and I'm just going to assume that is to know that you're not going to post how and when American taxpayers' dollars are being used for what programs. That's the issue of the apportionment, which is again legal. So it's a legal issue there. You're not responsible, but you can get back to your OMB friends and tell them that they are liable for penalties when they come contrary to the Anti-Deficiency Act. Food for farmers. Let me just, what you said there. U.S. food aid programs, across USDA, purchased roughly $1 billion worth of grain from farmers across the country. So one farmer from Illinois said, to kill that program is a disaster. It's morally bankrupt, and it hurts the farmer's bottom line. USAID spends $2 billion annually on U.S.-grown agriculture for humanitarian aid. Losing even a portion of that has already been a disaster for farmers. I want to talk about the spend plan because, lest you know, this is the public law. This is it, which requires you in the CR to provide a spend plan detailing how you will use taxpayer dollars at the program, project, and activity level. You provided a bare bones spend plan with only account level numbers, no details, no transparency for the American people. You are out of compliance with the law. I'm asking you, when are you going to come into compliance with the law with the spend plan?
As I said, as far as I know, we are in compliance with the CR, but I will happily go back. And
I'm right. Please let us know when we are going to receive the details that we need for this effort in order to be able to do our business. This is an appropriations committee. We need to know how much, where it's going, what are the specific programs. We just can't make a decision saying this is the pot of money we need, but we have no specificity about where it is going. And I just might add, you're not the only agency that is not in compliance. So I'm going to ask you, give us a time frame when you can get back to us with the detail.
I will take it under advisement. I will talk to my advisors and
okay, what I was just saying, Mr. Chairman, I believe we need to have an answer on when that data is coming before we decide what it is that we are going to spend and appropriate with regard to the Department of Defense. I was listening on trade deals, et cetera, and this is, I will just state this. We're looking at doing a trade deal with Lesotho. Whoa. I know they have a lot of penguins.
We're not spending time on that. Don't worry about it.
Well, yeah, but I think it's important to note that Mr. Musk, who's now gone, I don't know if his contract is gone for Starlink in Lesotho. Let's just talk about what these deals are beginning to look like. Trade and tariffs. At one point, you said about whether or not the cost would go up. You said that's, quote, silly. That is silly, that they will not go up. I think Congresswoman Dean and I were at the same meeting this morning where the National Retail Federation is beside themselves with the uncertainty and with the struggle of what's going on. with small businesses. 99.6% of businesses have fewer than 500 people. 40%, they provide 40% of the wages are paid by small businesses. They will struggle if they're in a higher a tariff environment. And the question of uncertainty looms large on there. Tariffs, taxes on the American people. Let's face it. American people are desperate for help with the cost of living. These trade policies are in fact causing it further. The Yale Budget Lab estimates that tariffs will lower American households' purchasing power an average of $2,500 this year. $2,500, most households who live paycheck to paycheck do not have. Mr. Secretary, $2,500 is not a lot to billionaires, but it's a hell of a lot of money for Americans who struggle with groceries, with health care, and with housing costs. This administration, the president said that costs would come down on the first day. What the administration is doing is making it worse, and the level of uncertainty is providing chaos. It harms our economy, it jeopardizes small business, and it stifles the investment that creates jobs. We need to know what you're doing, how you're doing it. I thank the chairman again, but it can't be, you know, God's in his heaven, all's right with the world. You need to face the facts and be truthful about what's happening with the trade policies and other areas that this administration is engaged in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I disagree.
I'm sure you do.
Mr. Secretary, during our first exchange, we talked slightly about Nippon. My first question will be is, with that deal, you said you agreed, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. Were you in the room or at the table for the CFIUS agreement, and what was your recommendation?
I can't really discuss the particulars, but generally, we came to the view that the deal would be good for America. The president came to the view it would be good for America, and we are discussing how to make sure that protects the USA and America. And,
So
and
in
those
the beginning,
discussions are ongoing
in the beginning,
right
the
now.
administration, when he was a candidate, was against the deal.
Well, the terms of the deal did not protect America, and he's interested in making sure the terms of the deal protect America.
And I agree. So I represent Northwest Indiana, Gary, Indiana, one of the top steel producing. One of the concerns with the USW, the union, is to specifically make sure that the investments that have been agreed upon, that those—
You can say promised. How about that?
See, that's my concern. You're right, promised, based on market conditions. So these are real-life individuals. My father came over from grandfather came over from Czechoslovakia, ended up in Northwest Indiana, worked in the steel mills. Families everywhere around my district. It is our economic engine. You have passionately talked about how it is a national security issue, right? So with that, many promises have been made. First and foremost, to my steelworkers, just a recommendation. The USW wants a seat at the table because they are concerned about disinvestment in their union blast furnaces that will go to non-union shops in other parts of the country. So in my district, which I'm here to protect, that our concern level is to make sure that the administration hears the voices very loudly and clearly from my district, that we want assurances, not based on market conditions, that this investment, promised investment, will protect steelworkers' jobs and tradesmen who provide the maintenance on those blast furnaces. So what are you going to do specifically, not broad strokes of what's going to happen, specifically what are you going to do to protect those jobs in my district?
I agree with you. My understanding is the president agrees with you, and I think the end result of the transaction with Nippon will agree with you.
What are some of the specifics, or can I get a commitment from you that the USW union representation leadership will have a seat at the table to protect their interests in U.S. Steel?
I think the best I can say is that the president understands their concerns. I understand their concerns. I have met with the Steelworkers Union, and I understand their concerns.
Do you understand that this creates uncertainty, unpredictability for families who want to make sure that they have a secure income, health care, secure pension, that uncertainty causes great disbelief in what is going on. And specifically, what are you going to do to protect those jobs? I understand you agree with me. We agree that a $14 billion investment on top of a regular $14 billion investment, that's pretty good. But what are you specifically going to do to protect those steelworkers' jobs?
The President of the United States flew to Pittsburgh and
I saw the press conference. I've got a minute. What are you
So he was-
specifically going to do? I saw the press conference. I saw it. I saw the rally. Specifically what are you going to do?
The President of the United States will direct what he wants to do, and I will assist him in doing so. He knows the Steelworkers Union concerns, and I think they will be very happy with the outcome.
Okay, so time is of the essence. They want a seat at the table so that there's not disinvestment in my community and investment in other parts of the community which would have cheaper labor. I want to make sure that I articulate that to you. Then ultimately, I also want to ask about, with the Nippon deal, if there is reshoring manufacturing and there's a 50% tariff around the world on steel, correct? Nippon now is an investor in U.S. steel. Please tell me if they are going to be able to circumvent that 50% tariff and ship steel. No.
If they make it in America, you don't pay the tariff. If you make it anywhere else but America, anywhere else, you're going to pay.
But are you following me? A foreign country is investing in an American company to circumvent those trade policies or to the tariffs.
If you hire Americans and you build it here, you don't pay the tariff.
Okay.
So if a foreigner builds, good for them.
Okay.
But in America, with Americans.
Know that, I just want to close in saying, know that I agree a $14 billion investment in the infrastructure of our steel industry is a good thing. But understand how vitally, gravely important it is to the steel workers, to my community, to my economic development, or my economic engine.
Time of the gentleman
You
has
stand up for those
expired.
jobs. Thank you, Chairman.